Alright, how much we want to bet that it did not pick the right microphone? Let's find out. It says default. I don't know what default implies. Let's open up a tab. Guess what? It didn't pick the right one. Okay. That should be better. That is, okay. Let me get a link to the stream. Let me just put it on Twitter. Here it is. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. Final chapter of the Arc 9 phase. Let's go put our hashtags in there. Buzz. Okay. We are good to go pretty much. Yeah, I did notice that. I actually forgot to pull that up. Shit. Let me go grab that. Oh, it's actually right here on the site. Perfect. Yeah, I can just get to it easily. Sick. Alright. Let's switch on over to the camera. I forgot to turn on the camera. Hold on. I forgot I have to open a window to turn it on. Forgot about that part. This looks shockingly a little low. I don't know what happened. Weird. Did I change anything? Because it's like, it's definitely low on both ends, which means something happened here. I don't think it's my monitor screen that did this. I don't know. Okay, we're a little bit lower this time. That's all right. I might open up the window a little more. Hold on. 1 second. That's a bit better. I could open up all the way. Hold on. Come on. All right. Not perfect, but it's good enough. Okay. So, hello everybody. I'm here now. Camera's again shockingly lower than it should be, but that I don't know. I'm gonna. Can I delete my own chat comment? No, I can't. Okay, whatever. It'll just be in there. It's whatever. Okay, so there was a bit of a delay. I can take this off now because I know my audio is fine. There was a bit of a delay, and essentially what that delay was I had to finish some stuff up, and then I also had to grab something to eat because I'm going to be real. I hadn't had something to eat yet today, right? So, kind of both of those. That was all fine and dandy, and then all of a sudden, the dog, Astrid, really needed to go out, and I was just like, well, shit. Now I gotta like top out with that. So that was a whole ordeal. I realized I was getting close on time. I'm like, oh shit. I started rushing in terms of eating. That didn't work out great for me. So kind of took a minute. And now we're here. So definitely later than I wanted to be, but that's okay. We only have a chapter. It's fine. However, disregarding that, there is the obvious thing of what the fuck happened here, right? Because the last time we streamed, if I can look this up, the last time we streamed, I think was excluding Deltarune. I think it was like Monday. I want to say Monday last week is the last time we did a stream. Let me double check that that's correct. Well, I guess Monday 2 weeks ago. Sorry, I'm a little bit off on the time there. Yeah, June 3rd is the last time. That was in fact 2 weeks ago. Holy shit. And that was a Tuesday actually. So, it's been 2 weeks, right? That's shockingly long when, I mean, okay, to be fair, by the point that that week ended, I think, I could be wrong, but I think by the point that week ended, that's when DePay revealed, oh, hey, here's an extra chapter. He's done this a lot. I knew this was going to potentially happen, but that did happen by the end of the week, so that's not entirely on me, right? On top of the fact, weekends are a little bit rough in terms of timing sometimes. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're rough, right? So it all kind of depends. Anyways, in regards to that, right? Technically speaking, we could have done this way sooner, right? So then the obvious question becomes, why not, right? Then it becomes, why did we not do it sooner? I'll take a quick drink, because I am thirsty. And here's why, right? First off, I'm gonna be real. This has happened before with streams, so I just kind of needed a moment. Um, Essentially just that. I needed a moment, right? Because I like streaming a lot, but here's the issue, right? I'm working on Act 2 stuff still. Now, I have to make an update video. I'm probably going to make it directly after this stream, I'm not going to lie. Um, I have to make an update video talking about everything that's to come, right? Because really, that's something else I want to pull up on the channel is not much has happened this year for content on the channel, and that is really unfortunate to me. I can do a lot more, by all means, but not much has happened so far. If we go off everything, right? Let's exclude the most recent upload of me getting to the moment, right? Let's exclude that. There was a review for Volume 40, or the Phase 2. There was the Talks About Festa, which was great. I'm glad I got that done finally. That was awesome. I really like doing that video. I can't wait to do a new version of it for essentially like next year in a certain sense, like this year slash, the video gets posted, start of next year, all that. Can't wait to do that, right? By all means. Outside of those two, though, and maybe like an update video and me talking about ADT, I don't even know if that was this year. It probably was, actually, because 5 months ago that would be. Yeah, so outside of that and me talking about ADT and all this, realistically, not much has happened. So that's really unfortunate for me. It's like, damn, right? We haven't gotten much in. That's something I'll discuss with the update video, obviously. Um, but in regards to all this, right? I needed a bit of a break from streaming because I was doing it so often, and I've had this problem way in the past where I was streaming a ton and it was getting me kind of like tired of what I was doing and all that. So I needed a break from that. On top of the fact, like, it normally wouldn't be this bad, but the problem was I was also working on stuff for Act 2, right? I'm working on teasers and all that and all this sort of shit, right? And I'm excited that we are so fucking close to being able to like launch the whole thing, right? I am so damn excited. I can't wait to obviously discuss more on that. I'll even have a surprise regarding it with the update, because at the current moment, I mentioned it on a tweet. I was aiming for spring on Act 2. There is like a day left of spring. Like if we want to be like absolute precise on timing and everything, there is a day left. There is no shot I get all of this done in a day. So that said, right, because there's a few more things to correct in terms of chapters, and I still have to get the cover done and all this. So like I don't think the cover will take that long, right? This is why I'm kind of partially saying I think Act 2 will be soon, because this won't take much longer, but definitely not spring, right? I feel bad for getting people's hopes up because I thought this would work out, and I didn't realize how tough this would be to balance everything in life with, all this, making videos in general, like alongside it, and all this, and doing the reviews and whatever it may be. So didn't work out perfectly. That's all right, right? But I needed a bit of a break. I needed time to focus on Act 2 before I continued with this, right? Because it's kind of the thing of like, I want to be able to at least work on my own project more before I pop onto other things. The other issue that is a little bit obvious given what was streamed right after, Deltarune. So I streamed that twice, right? I streamed it once the Wednesday it came out, or was it Wednesday? Did Deltarune drop on a Wednesday? Hold on. Yes. Yes. I streamed on Tuesday for, huh, weird. I streamed back to back. Unless the YouTube upload of it, because YouTube kind of uploads streams, unless the YouTube upload of the chapter reading was, like, technically Tuesday. Maybe that was weird. Weird if I did actually stream it the day right after, because it's like, damn, I'm surprised I did that at all. Um, but anyways, yeah. So Deltarune dropped on Wednesday of that week, right? So we streamed it then. Then Saturday we finished it up. I had a blast with that game. I am still trying to figure out if that game is in my top five, right? It is 100% in my top 10. I am trying to figure out if it's in my top five. I love that game. Holy shit. I have not felt like this about a game in a long while. And ironically, the immediate comparison I could make, uh, I mean, obviously there's stuff like Infinite Wealth and everything where I had like, a fantastic time. And that's like my favorite game and everything now. Um, but I'm just thinking in terms of like uh hmm. Actually, you know what? I know what might be wrong here with the camera. I'm like kind of looking at it. Might be the monitor isn't further back. That's what it might be, yeah. The monitor wasn't further back enough. That's all right. Um, but what was I saying? Yeah, so favorite games. I have not felt like this about this sort of just like interesting story with all these characters and all this theory crafting and everything since, ironically enough, I think original Undertale, right? And even original Undertale I do still really like, but I would mention like, it kind of did feel like a recency thing for me, and then it did like kind of, calm down a bit, but I was still like, I do think that game's still great, right? And I still love seeing people go through it for the first time and all this shit, right? But like playing through Deltarune was awesome, and I was glad to have gone through that, at least like what's out so far. I can't wait for next year to do another chapter and potentially the year after and so on and so forth. Like we're close to the end technically on that game. We're at the halfway point, but the halfway point is also leaning in our favor in terms of what we have versus what needs to come, right? Because it's 4 out of 7, so makes sense. But that was 2 streams, so that should not have been enough to warrant this delay. That said, there was an issue with the game that I noticed, well, not noticed, but I knew going into it, and I knew going into chapter 2, way back like 4 years ago, right? Save files. I knew this game wasn't going to keep my save file, right? For chapter 2, I knew that because I did the survey thing, like that they released on a website, rather than this whole like, oh yeah, here's a Steam release and you can just continue from there. And I didn't really want to just jump back into chapter 1 on stream, right? That was fairly simple. And then this most recent set of chapters, a little batch, I mean, I guess couple really, but um the issue with that was this like essentially Steam sort of demo version I had originally of chapter 2 and everything, like what everybody had pretty much, this free demo sort of thing, quote unquote. Uh, that obviously got removed and then replaced by this. So my save file was not there either. On top of that, I never did the secret bosses, right? My dumbass failed to pay attention to that stuff. So I had to go back and do that. On top of the fact, I had to do it for chapter 3. I did it for chapter 4, like on Saturday, where, we went through it, we figured out what to do. Chapter 3, I didn't realize what I had to do. Like, I realized too late, and I went, fuck. So, and even if I did realize, I think I wouldn't have known the extra part of it. Uh, but that wasn't going to happen. So, the following, like, 4 or 5 days after, whatever it may have been, that was essentially me getting caught up, right? It was me doing every single one of the secret bosses. It was me going, let me actually make sure my phone, sorry, I forgot to do the usual steps here because we were all over the place before we started. Turn that off. Turn that off temporarily. Okay. Yeah, but I was all over the place I was saying that with my phone, but I'm now saying it with this, like the next few days of just getting all this stuff done, right? So cool. Few days pass. I'm done with that. All right, sick, cool. Now we can do the new chapter. Then a close friend of mine contacts me and he's like, "Hey, I I wanna like play through this game, right?" He's like, everybody's talking about it, in our like server sort of stuff and everything, and it's like, you know, everybody's talking about it. On top of the fact that it's a Toby Fox game, it's good, and then he also like really enjoys like Earthbound and all that, like the whole Mother series. I should have just said the Mother series because that's the correct name, and yet my brain's like Earthbound's the correct name for some reason. Um, but he enjoys the whole ass Earthbound Mother series. I did it again. So immediately he was just like, okay, I want to try it out, right? He's like, I know about the stuff with chapter one overall, but like maybe the bits in between, not sure about. Chapter two, he knew some very minimal stuff, and then three and four he was going into completely blind. The next few days after that, I spent, just voice acting for him and everything in terms of some of the characters, and then just watching him play through it, going through all the interesting shit. It was fun, right? I was also kind of his guide because he wanted to do the secret boss stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll teach you the general thing to do, and I won't like just handhold the whole time, but I'll try and like direct if I need to regarding it, right? So fair enough. Ooh, excuse me. Um, I realize the tablet stuff's back there, but so that took a while, right? And then by this point in the week, right? So it was about like Sunday or Monday that he had finished it. And I kind of just sat there and I'm like, let me just take the next 2 days and work on like ADT stuff, right? And then we'll stream today and that'll be it, right? That's all we need to do. That's personally how I viewed it. Was just, you know what? I'm gonna take the next 2 days. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And then when, today comes, we finish up, right? That's how I viewed it. I just wanted to keep it like simple like that because it was like, you know what? Even if we had to wait a while for another chapter and all this, like in terms of me reading, I wanted to get that out of the way first, right? So with that stuff out of the way, right? Like obviously I'm gonna keep working on what I need to after this and everything. But after taking all that time and taking a nice break, we are back, right? And again, I will go further into this with an update video. Uh, I'm not gonna have it be too long. I don't think I'm gonna mention the Deltarune stuff as in depth as I did here, but like I'm gonna list some other things regarding stuff on the channel and everything there. We'll keep that simple. With that said, we are here to read, and we are going to read, right? We have a relatively, maybe not short, but we have a relatively medium-sized chapter, because that's always 5,000 words, so that's fine. And then we have the prologue thing. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess and say the prologue isn't very long, right? Let me try and copy some stuff here. Yeah, because the scroll bar looks like nothing. So I'm going to just do this really quick. And we're going to give ourselves a rough estimate for our total, which is like 6,000 words. Yeah, so it's whatever. So that works out. This will be short, right? It's not going to be too long of a stream. That pretty much means like hour and a half. That's fine. That works for me. But, then again, I said that last time and we got it done even shorter than that, I'm pretty sure. So, whatever, right? That said, though, might as well get into it, right? Why not? So, click this. Everything should be working again. Yep. I had to change up some stuff because I originally had Deltarune and all that full screen, and I had some of this removed. So I had to like kind of like hide it and then reopen it and everything. It's all right now. It's just, that I was a little bit worried stuff was gonna be fucked up, but we're all right. We're all right. Okay. with that said, man, I will say I am excited to do that update video because I can't wait to tease Act 2, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Uh, yeah, wow, I guess this is a continuation of what's happened. I'm just looking at that text. Ooh, I gotta like brace myself again, like, ooh, all right. Fuck. Hmm. Ooh. This might, this shit might hit hard. This shit might hit hard. All right. Take some nice deep breaths. You know, I will say the Deltarune streams did help me realize there is a significant difference between what I have to read with Tepe's writing and what I had to read with Deltarune. Because I almost never stuttered with Deltarune's text, but here I do occasionally. So it does show his vocabulary is very wide and it can be difficult sometimes. All right. Whew. Let's do this. Should we take one more drink? I think we take one more drink. All right. Let's do this. Oh, I actually forgot I should do pop-out chat. Hold on 1 second. I totally forgot. See, I'm all jumbled today, and I don't remember what to do, and then it's like, oh wait. Uh, me. There I am. Give me this. Pop-out chat. We can close that window. I put pop-out chat here. We widen it. I can also remove my comment. There we go. Oh, it also puts that on the pin. Oops. Okay. There we go. It's gone now. Okay. Now we can start. Make sure we're just all good. In terms of audio, everything seems all right. All right. Cool. Let's do this. I just removed the pop-out chat again. All right. Sorry I've caused you so much trouble. No, Rem is the one who ought to be happy that you cried with joy. It was just like when Nesama did the same. Ah. Petra bowed her head repeatedly, apologizing for her flustered and disgraceful behavior. Rem, who had tried to comfort Petra, realized she had said something awkward and stiffened her cheeks, looking toward Ram. In response to Ram's gaze, Ram smiled gently and said, "It's okay. After all, Ram is a pathetic older sister who is unable to even keep her composure during an emotional reunion. It's no wonder Rem would call her sister a crybaby." That's not what I meant. It's a misunderstanding that you're a crybaby, Nesama. Besides, I was happy that you cried for me, Nesama. That's right, Ram. You're finally able to remember Rem. Even if you did cry, no one would think you're a crybaby. Cheer up. Rem, Milia-sama. Wah, wah, wah. Following Rem's lead, Amelia joined in comforting her, but Rem covered her eyes with her hands and turned away. The two remained concerned, but from Petra's perspective, it was all just a farce. Of course, there was no doubt that this situation brought tears of joy to Ram's eyes. Ram Nesama, I get that you're happy, but you shouldn't tease them so much. Huh? Tease? Petra managed to compose herself and admonished Ram, causing Amelia and Rem to widen their eyes. Rem, who had deceived the two innocent girls, seized her fake crying, shrugged her shoulders, and said, scroll down a little bit. Oh, too much. A little further. There we go. All right. Well, now that the memories have been restored, it's natural to want to see all of Rem's different expressions, so there was some teasing involved. Will you forgive such a mean older sister? Nesama. Well, it seems it can't be helped. Just this once, okay? Yes, thank you. Are you okay with that, Amelia-sama? Rem forgave you, so I can't stay angry forever. Good grief. Amazing. Instead of showing any humility, all you did was act cute and you got away with it. Despite showing not a single shred of remorse, Rem and Amelia easily forgave Ram's overbearing behavior, while Meili watched in astonishment and muttered in disbelief. Petra agreed with Meili's disbelief. This was typical of Ram, but she was getting a little too carried away. I'd like to hold a victory party for Rem Nesama. This is a very difficult time, so could you please refrain from doing so, Rem Nesama? Self-restraint, you say? That sounds reasonable at first, but what about you, Petra? What do you mean? I've been reflecting on what happened earlier as well. Not that you should feel bad about getting all worked up, just something else that has been concerning. Ever since a little while ago, it seems you have naturally positioned yourself between Rem and Amelia Sama. Ooh, ooh, Ram's picking up. She's picking up on it. Ram pointed this out with one eye closed, and Petra widened her eyes with a huh? Then she looked to her left and right, saw the profiles of Amelia and Rem beside her. The three of them were now sitting side by side on the long sofa, with Petra in the middle. Petra had her arms firmly around the two of them, as if she never wanted to let go. Huh? Don't just huh us. After you hugged Rem One-san, you very naturally pulled her along with you. Even Amelia One-san was pulled along too. Oh wait, that was actually perfect. So, sorry, seems like my love for both of you overflowed. Petra reflected on her actions. She said that out loud. Petra reflected on her actions in light of Meili's continued exasperation. However, her excuse was precisely the same as Ram's earlier, causing Ram to let out a ha. It's okay. It's okay. There's no need to worry, Petra-san. Rem also, oh yeah, Rem also wants to fill in the gaps in her memory piece by piece. Rem Nesama. Besides, Rem didn't think Petra-san and the others in the village got along with her very well, so it's a pleasant, it's a pleasant surprise to find that they cared so much. With Petra's arm wrapped around her, Rem blushed slightly and gave a shy smile. From Rem's perspective, her relationship with Petra and the others was at its peak around the time the royal selection began, during the month when Subaru was taken in at the mansion. Before that, they had been merely passing acquaintances at best. That was why Rem's perception was not wrong. The reason Petra held such strong feelings for Rem was not so much because of her own emotions, but because of the extent of Subaru's influence. However, despite that, she still felt them. Rem-sama, smiling and looking shy, how precise or how precious. Petra-chan, your ears are really red. Are you okay? Ah, that's not true. This isn't two timing. Rem-sama is number one. Huh? That's right. I'm the most important person in the camp, so I have to do my duties properly. No, yeah, like it is funny that like Rem's like, oh wow, like they really do care about me, and meanwhile it's just like, no. I mean, they probably like were concerned, Rem, but it's like it's solely because her memories now are all jumbled up. Petra, torn between her impatience and happiness, blurted out something she should not have said. But Amelia, like the angel or goddess that she was, or perhaps because it simply went over her head, reacted to it like a dense protagonist. Interesting way of wording her like that, to pay. Ooh, excuse me. I will say, you know, doing those Deltarune streams may have helped. Those Deltarune streams plus voice acting from my friend, I am, I might jinx it, but I am barely, kind of veering off here anywhere like too much. So, you know what? This is good. This is good. Maybe that was an improvement. Maybe I really do have to put that game in my top 5 solely because it's made live reading sessions like even better. So maybe because I mean that's the thing. Experience kind of changes that. My reviews early on were different than how my reviews are now, even though they're the exact same, right? No, yeah, it has a lot of like as you put it has a lot of Earth idioms, and then also the fact that it describes Amelia as a goddess or an angel and all this sort of stuff, and like like dense protagonist and everything. It's very much like somebody who does have all this knowledge of like the modern day Earth sort of like society, I guess. versus anybody in, like, Lagunica and all this sort of stuff and everything, and how they're familiar with stuff, so therefore narration gets kind of pieced together like this fantasy sort of thing. It is really interesting. With that in mind, Petra suppressed her racing heartbeat and stood up, telling herself, Subaru is my number one. If she remained sandwiched between Amelia and Rem, her heart would surely be pulled apart. Way to go, Petra. You hung in there. Subaru, you better be ready for me to give you a piece of my mind later, you two-timer. That's not fair. I can't even touch Amelia Tan or Rem. Petra managed to cut off her lingering sentimentality and directed her pent-up anger toward the imaginary Subaru. Holding a handkerchief to stifle her tears, she sighed as she watched Subaru dance around the reception room, exploding with emotions towards Rem, whose memories had returned. That was when Rem knows that she's causing quite a disturbance, but it would be helpful if we could calm down for now. Let's talk about that person. Rem's quiet voice caused the air in the room to become noticeably tense. Although it had not completely relaxed, the atmosphere had started to warm up despite the urgency of the current situation, yet Rem herself wiped that away. That was very admirable and impressive. Rem, did Clanson already explain everything to you? More or less. Besides, we also saw the devastation in the royal capital. Who would have thought it would come to this? Barasu really messed up. Ramnesima. That's quite a way of putting it. Sorry, let's rephrase that. Everyone, including Ram, really messed up. I do like that she I like that she blames it on, Subaru at first, like kind of almost like the same like joking thing as always, but then she kind of realizes after the fact, nah, we all fucked up, right? Just like, no, we should not have parted like that potentially. That was not a smart idea. Oh, that's good. I like that. Also, I mean, I guess part of it's obviously towards Rem, but it's an interesting thing of like also in that regard of like the fact that everyone split up the way they did perfectly worked out for Al. So, okay, that's empty. Time for water. Luckily, I have it right here. So, I think we're good for the whole stream in terms of drink. I don't think I have to go on BRB too much, if at all. Yeah. All right. Rem's assessment weighed heavily and resonated deeply within everyone. As previously confirmed before Ram and Rem had rejoined them, the severity of Al's actions was beyond one's ability to bear. That being said, there's nothing to be gained from blaming ourselves excessively. Ultimately, the responsibility for what happened ought to lie with the person who caused it. That's what we've concluded. That's how Ram and the others feel, no doubt. Things aren't that simple, wouldn't you agree? You're quite an impressive girl. What was all that fooling around earlier? With that, Ramji stroked his bald head and gave Ram a stern look. See, there's another thing, like Ramji as his name, rather than just, Ram or anything like that. It's interesting. Seeing the understanding between the two, Rem tilted her head and said, Nesama. When you say things aren't that simple, are you talking about where the responsibility lies? Yes, that's right. Ramsama wants to discuss the details. Please go ahead. Throwing us a load of trouble. Well, fine. As the girl said, regardless of our resolve, the current situation ain't good for us, or for all of you. Ramji, who had been entrusted with explaining the situation by Ram, pointed at himself and Amelia with his thick fingers. Staring at his large fingertips, Amelia blinked her amethyst eyes and, that's true for us, but Ramji, what about you, the others, and Felchan? Ezo was also at the tower. He was given the task of managing the tower until an official investigation team could be dispatched by the kingdom, but he was unable to fulfill his duty. Even Reinhard wasn't able to stop the helmet bastard nor the divine dragon. The damage was caused to the royal capital. But, thanks to Amelia and Nesan, no big rocks fell in the city, right? So why are we still being scolded? If you could gain popularity by just smashing stones thrown at you, then Reinhard could just keep doing that forever. Melee. It's not just the results that need to be figured or like judged fair. I kind of put those two together, and I'm like, it's figured to be judged fairly, but the process as well. Yeah. Merely pounded at Ramji, who shook his head or his big head slowly with serious or with a serious expression. No, yeah. So this is something I'm going to mention with a Demon's Tale, right? With my writing as well. Accents are fucking annoying to write, right? Here's the thing. I love doing it for the sake of expressing a character, right? But it is rough, right? It is so rough to remind yourself, like at least for me, right? When I have to write that in general, I have to remind myself, okay, this word has to be shortened. This word I have to change how it's spelled. This word I have to do, all this sort of stuff of like I have to go in and be like, uh, and then sometimes you have to make sure it makes sense, right? Um, because if the character is saying you, right? Sometimes you can just say yeah, right? Very simple. But then there's also the case of how the sentence works. Because sometimes if the sentence doesn't work with it, I'm trying to think of an example, but there are times where you can't change it. Because if you change it, it's a really awkward sentence. So it has to be you, right? It just has to be you, no change. It's just the word you, right? But other times, like I said, you do have to change it. And it's this back and forth battle, and it can be really annoying. And I had to do this twice for Act 2. I don't know if I'm gonna have some more accents in there. I might, I very well might, right? But like I had to do this twice for Act 2 a Demon's Tale, and it was horrible in terms of just going in and making sure yep, consistent. Yeah, hold on. I see. Fair enough. Uh, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I will probably check that out if they like kind of drop the pages. Um, what was the thing? Accent, right? Accents. Yeah. So accents are like rough to write, and I can imagine translating also would be annoying because it's the thing of like, okay, uh, hmm, I see. Um, but I can imagine translating it's rough in terms of that whole thing because like you would have to, yeah, you would have to translate it to English, and then also you would have to change it because of the way it's written and all this sort of stuff. Like honestly, I imagine this is the same type of shit that like a lot of, essentially people making subtitles for shows have to deal with, or like certain games and everything. Because the obvious example I can think of is like the Yakuza slash Like a Dragon games. There's a lot of Kansai accents in there, and therefore you have to change them to be more appropriate because that's like that's essentially the countryside sort of accent. So it's like you have to make sure it all works out correctly. We should probably turn on the light. Let me close that window up and then turn on the light. It's getting dark out already. It's like kind of crazy. It's the summer and yet it's like this. Okay. Uh, I mean, I could keep this one open. I don't know if this one makes a difference. You know what? It looks like it'll make a bit of a difference, so I'll keep this one overall open. But yeah. Um. Oh, sick. All right, cool. I'll peep that in a bit. I did see the Emilia one that you did send, which looked absolutely sick. It's funny. I was sent that and it was really fucking cool, and I sent it to a friend of mine just to show him. Uh, and it's funny because the whole last time I was doing like I mentioned the whole like, oh yeah, after I had streamed Deltarune and I was doing all the secret boss stuff, and meanwhile I'm in the middle of doing like the hardest secret boss. I lose one of my runs. I see that I'm like, damn, right, and just immediately my mood is like back. It just kind of spikes back up. No, yeah, it was a real funny ass like, mm, these are some. Honestly, out of the one illustration I saw so far, these illustrations might be crazy, right? I don't know what the others are gonna look like yet, right? I'll check after. Um, but out of that one illustration, it looks good. It looks good, right? I'm enjoying what's been shown so far, so I can't complain. Let me take a drink. Let's move some of the stuff here. There we go. Ooh, how is this not cold? I let it run for a bit just to make sure. Oh, okay. I did notice an illustration in there when I was trying to check the word count of it, but I didn't pay too much attention, but I guess fair enough. I actually, just because of the general, because I know I saw a Echidna there, just because of that, I kind of like almost assumed like, oh, maybe it's an Arc 4 illustration, but I guess not. I guess it is just outright the illustration from the book. Interesting. Um, all right, back in we go. Yep, everything's up. Where the fuck were we? Were we at the top? Yeah. Hidden beneath Melee's dissatisfied attitude lay her frustration that Amelia's critical role was not being properly appreciated. Realizing this, Amelia smiled at Melee and said, "Thank you," causing the pouting girl to turn away even further. Uh, at the bare minimum, we gotta talk about what we absolutely must do. First, we gotta stop that helmet bastard. The man who calls himself Aldebaran, with our own hands. Can't leave it to anyone else or the kingdom. We can only talk about recouping our losses after we've done that. Why does it have to be us? Of course, it would be natural for us to try our best, but if Alice stopped before he does something terrible, Amelia, you don't understand. It's no longer just about Aldebaran. He's got the divine dragon on his side. There's a serious matter that could shake the foundations of the royal selection. The only way to reverse that is for the dragon priestess, the royal candidate, to recall the divine dragon. If that can't be done, does that mean the royal selection itself would be null and void? Mila spoke of a definitive possibility, and Romji drew back his chin with a serious expression. Upon hearing this, Petra belatedly comprehended the gravity of the situation. In the first place, the royal selection to determine the next monarch of the Kingdom of Lagunica was based upon the prophecy of the Dragon History Stone that was necessary in order to maintain the covenant with the dragon. In other words, it was a ceremony which relied upon the mighty power of the divine dragon Volcanica, and without the divine dragon, the royal selection would not be viable. For that, for that reason, we must. The only solutions to stop Aldebaran, the one who bewitched the divine dragon, by the hands of a royal candidate. This was a fundamental prerequisite for settling this crucial situation, for the continuation of the royal selection. No, yeah, it's kind of funny. A little bit further down. The words of the old giant, the wise man from the Felt camp, who had long seen the world, possessed conviction which none could refute. The destruction of the world by Al's hand must be averted. However, that did not mean that so long as the world was spared, nothing else mattered. After the battle ended, there was a matter of we need to ensure there is a proper place for Subaru-kun's return. Rem, after listening to Romji's words, Mila looked at Rem as she muttered so. Rem met her gaze, her pale blue eyes filled with resolve, responding with, "That's how it should be, is it not? That person, he did the same for me." Rem's room in the mansion remained exactly as it was before, because Subaru-kun thought so highly of her. Rem was able to remember the things she had forgotten. It's all thanks to the morning star that Subaru-kun polished every day. Indeed, Rem emphasized that forcefully, with an iron ball attached to a chain in her hands, the morning star. Overwhelmed by the chain's rousing resonation and Rem's vigor, Amelia tilted her head. Thanks to the morning star? Yes. May surprise you, there was a moment upon touching the morning star. Every memory up to that point came flooding back, thinking that it was all just that person's obsession was a misunderstanding. There are so many things to apologize for. Oh, that does, quote unquote, it pains my heart, but also it kind of makes like me feel, warm inside to know she wants to apologize for everything, right? Any doubts she had about him regarding Spica, right? Any the "you're not a hero" moment, all this sort of stuff. She's obviously gonna pull back a few things and be like, okay, she's gonna be a little bit more grounded and all that. But like, it is sweet that she kind of realizes I have so much to apologize for. I said so much shit to him that I shouldn't have said, right? And it's like, oh, that's sweet that she realizes I gotta apologize for everything, right? Ah, that's good. I like that. Uh, Lowering her eyes as if ashamed of herself, Rem recounted how her memories had returned to her. Troubled by Rem's impassioned plea, a wide-eyed Amelia waved her hands about. Perhaps it was a matter of timing. That which Gluttony, whom Al had released from the prison tower, had done was likely related to the rebirth of Rem's memories and name, and that had happened at the same time Rem had touched the morning star in the mansion, which we know is true. That was why Rem was convinced that the morning star had awakened her. Honestly, it is neat that like she imagines that it does so. Rem, can you calm yourself for a moment to listen? Rest assured, Amelia-sama, with this morning star, Rem will surely be of help in getting Subaru-kun back. After that is done, let us discuss what happened in the Empire and the future. Amelia continued to look troubled as Rem clenched her fists with an attitude of determination. Next to her, Amelia looked at Rem and asked, "Aren't you going to stop her?" To which she replied, "Can't be helped." This is something Rem didn't expect either. Who would have thought that Boris's ridiculous ramblings about polishing it every day would actually prove useful? It's really bad that I'm the one with the most common sense here. Merely lamented the situation, which even Rem had placed too much faith in the power of the morning star. In any case, it was necessary to share. Oh, no, yeah. Because, I mean, it makes sense. From their perspective, Rem touched it and just immediately, whoa, right? And it's like, it's fair to say that when neither of them had interacted with it before, right? Subaru was the one solely cleaning it. So it makes sense of like, oh, she interacts with it, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, that did it. And they don't know the fact that, hey, Roy was there and he literally spat out the memory. So there was no shot, right? Well, memory and name, but like spat out both, and therefore, you know. But like to them, it would just make sense of like, oh, okay, she touched it and she didn't have access to it before, and she could summon it on command before, so surely that's why, right? Uh, fuck, were we? In any case, it was necessary to share everything they knew concerning Gluttony with Rem and the others, including their speculations. Petra decided to leave that to Amelia and turned back to Ramji, keeping the dream-like interplay between Amelia and Rem in the corner of her eye. And then Klein Nisama still hasn't returned with the Master and the others. But we don't have time, or we don't have much time. We'll be cooperating with Ram Oji-san, right? That's right. So our consensus is that the royal selection's gotta continue. Then please, tell us about it. Ram Oji-san, what have you noticed about Al-san? Ramji had joined up with them in the plains and had accompanied them as they rushed to the royal capital. For the sake of Klein's compression, he had opted to act separately from I always struggle with the name. Tonshin Kan and the rest. But he had been laying the groundwork for fighting alongside Amelia and the others, saying that he had critical information concerning Al that he had obtained during their previous clash. A bit further. From the discussions up to this point, the Amelia and Felt camps were of one mind. It was time for both sides to open up to each other. Thus, Petra urged Ramji. Petra urged Ramji. In response to Petra's request, Ramji patted his bald head and said, "What I'm going to tell you is going to sound pretty outlandish and insane. I didn't keep it a secret because I wanted to seem important or nothing, but because it's so unbelievable. It's okay. I'll believe you, Ram Oji-san. I'm sure Ram Oji-san would be surprised if he knew. Seriously. You're also quite the peculiar girl, ain't you, Petra? Perhaps mistaking it for lip service, Ramji lowered his eyebrows and muttered in exasperation. But there were no lies in Petra's words. Petra trusted Ramji. She knew that he cared deeply for Felt, who had been taken hostage by Al and his accomplices, and that he was a man of fatherly love who would show no hesitation to sacrifice his life for Felt. For that reason, the hurdle of trust about which Ramji was concerned was cleared at the onset. Unaware of Petra's various circumstances, while paying heed to Amelia and Rem, who even now were still reconciling their perceptions of each other, Ramji said, "This is something I'll tell Amelia and the others later, but this Aldebaran guy is likely using some kind of cheat technique called an authority." An authority? Subaru reacted to Ramji's carefully chosen words before Petra could. Subaru ceased his twirling in midair, and his face stiffened, his gaze fixed intently upon Ramji. Imaginary Subaru's reaction was understandable. They had just heard it from Klein's mouth, but both Petra and Subaru were familiar with the word authority and its more sinister significance. No, yeah, like now, oof, now a whole lot of people are gonna know about this shit, and it's like, damn, I was gonna have to find some tricky ways out of this. That said, he's found some ways out of this before. There's a chance he has a backup plan, right? There's a chance he's like, oh, fucking. I'm thinking about that, like the one scene I know from a certain show that I'm not at yet, remotely. I'm not even remotely at it, but I'm thinking about like, oh, how we, he fucking like the idea of him like summoning a meteor or some shit, and they like deal with that, and it's just like, okay, now we know how to like deal with his authority. We can like just jump him and all this bullshit. It's like, how will you deal with the second meteor? Like he's probably gonna have some bullshit that he just pulls out of nowhere. That scene is so fucking funny to me, by the way. It's unfortunate I already know about it. But that's so fucking funny. Oh my god. Uh, where am I going? It was a word that had been uttered by the Sin Archbishop of Sloth and by the Witch of Greed who slumbered in her tomb. The manifestation of a formidable right which allowed one to interfere with the nature of this world, to overturn concepts, to selfishly paint over those laws. The reason Ramji concluded that Al utilized one was because this guy seems like he's able to go back to a time gone by, but don't seem to go very far back though. In the end, just what was it that she absolutely needed to do? That problem, which had accompanied her endlessly since the days she had been small and weak, continued to familiarly haunt Felt even now that she had been taken by the Aldebaran crew. uh, Geez, it's so damn irritating. I was about to say infuriating, but I mean, I guess technically either will work here. Scratching her head at that frustration, Felt spat out the bitterness that had been festering in her stomach. Feelings of powerlessness and resignation, albeit definite, were of no use, this Felt knew. Despite that, despite never quenching her throat or nor filling her belly, they would seek to fill up people's bodies, welling up by every means just to get in the way. With a click of her tongue, Felt sunk her teeth into the dried meat served to her for dinner, chewing it apart. Finding herself clearly unsatisfied with the overly salty flavor, she was disgusted with how spoiled she had become. It had been a mere 2.5 days since they had parted, yet she longed for the cooking of phlegm and grasses. Even the heavily seasoned, manly meals that Ezo rations, and the rest would sometimes bring to the table were far preferable were far preferable to these portable dishes. Flaming Grasses would get mad at her if she made Reinhard cook, as it was a task below his station, so she did not make him do so. But when Felt had him make sweets in secret, he was not bad at all. Unfortunately, Felt and Ramji's culinary skills were so horrendous that she was amazed that she had not died of food poisoning in over 10 years she had spent at the loot house. That was likely the source of Felt's meager growth when compared to others of the same age. Regardless of the culinary circumstances of her camp. Can't cook or nothing. So then, what can I do? Licking a grain of salt from her fingertip, or off her fingertip, Felt narrowed her red eyes, her thoughts returning to the initial problem. At present, the Aldebaran crew was moving from place to place, with Aldebaran and the Vine Dragon endeavoring to recover from their exhaustion incurred from the royal capital. Initially, Felt assumed that Aldebaran and his accomplices would make straight for their objective, the Grand Mogulad Geyser, after fleeing the royal capital, but it seemed as if it was not simply a matter of reaching the destination. An element of grasping the right time was involved as well. However, those breaths of respite while waiting for that time were far from ideal. They had been met with the relentless sabotage of a Callius pursuer, Otto Suin. It's not just talking with bugs, it's an outrageously terrifying divine protection. Or rather, what's terrifying is probably not the divine protection, but Zodabug Nidshan himself. Otto possessed a quiet and ignorant face, but his true nature seemed to be that of an individual warranting extreme caution. Ultimately, every divine protection served as nothing more than just another tool. No matter how fine a sword one held, if they were not equipped with the strength to swing it, the ambition and opportunity to learn how to wield it, and the courage to brandish blade when the time came, then the sword would merely be a fine decoration. Otto had the strength, the opportunity, the ambition, and the courage. Thus, Felt would have no choice but to prove that she was too possessed those things, swordlessly as she was. That Nichan's going all out on the offensive, plotting some damn nasty stuff. The divine protection of the soul, of soul of language, Otto had allied with bugs, birds, and fish, without allowing the Aldebaran crew even a moment of tranquility. He was constantly forcing them to counter. The buzzing of insects and the distant howling of beasts, the pollution of water and contamination of food supplies, methods of attack were diverse. Since they were unable to secure any sleeping hours, Felt, being dragged along with them, was also experiencing a headache. But getting caught in the crossfire like this, something Felt could discount as trivial damage. Possible, Felt would make use of her position accompanying the enemy to mercilessly contribute to Otto's tactics. No, yeah, like I like that. This is the interesting thing is he's planning ahead, and it's not just, I'm gonna attack you with rocks and all this shit. He's planning ahead, and he's like, I'm not giving you a moment to sleep, right? No fucking rest for you, right? Keep walking. Anywhere you walk, there's gonna be a roadblock, right? You're gonna have to keep fighting, so you're gonna tire yourself out. No clean water, no clean food, anything like this, right? Like no sanitary food, all this sort of stuff. It's like you are going to be shitting yourself essentially, or you're just going to be deathly ill, and I'm going to force this upon you while also making you absolutely tired, right? He's being a real tactician right now. He's playing it smart and not just going attack, because if he was attacking, that wouldn't fucking matter, right? It's Zoda bugs, it's regular beasts. Al could deal with that. But he's being smart and being like, no, let's play around this. Let's play the war of attrition here. Like, there is no shot that you make it out of this, completely with a full stomach and a nice 8 hours of rest. Even 2 hours of rest, you're not even gonna get, right? All this, it's like, it's clever. It's really clever. Oh, this is good. And yeah, no, Ye's probably having a horrid time. I thought there'd be plenty enough meaning in serving to suppress the divine dragon, but that alone would not suffice. She had understood that through the battle between the Divine Dragon and the Sword Demon at the royal capital. No, yeah, like fish on his side as well. So like, you know, even potentially trying to fish or just maybe cross through a shortcut in the water. Nah, nah. It would be really actually hold on. It would be additionally interesting if he used. I don't know if you really could do this with fish, but if there were enough in that water, it would be interesting if he also made it so that it kind of got their crew damp as shit. So that it's like, oh, if it's generally kind of cold there or whatever, maybe not even cold, but if you are just damp enough for a long period of time, your body's going to be cold and therefore you're just going to be sick, right? So kind of use that against them. It'd be interesting if he did that as well. Um, yeah, no, he's gonna be like sleep deprived. He's gonna have nothing in his stomach. Again, he could just be sick by the end of this. Like, this is gonna be rough for him. They are jumping him so hard. He really is gonna have to have a backup plan, and I do have a firm belief that he has a backup plan. It's just he's gonna be in a fucked situation right now. I guess technically speaking, you could almost say Roy, but Roy also is gonna feel these things overall. The only thing is like Roy is always gonna feel hungry, so it's not like it makes a difference for him to starve. But that said, no sleep. We don't know how the archbishops are if they really do need sleep. So if he does, well, fair enough. Uh, that alone would not suffice yet. I'm sure that yep. Uh, even if no, yeah. Even if Felt's presence curtailed the Divine Dragon's power by 10%, the remaining 90% was still enough to display catastrophic power. Ooh, excuse me. That was the true worth of the Divine Dragon Volcanica. Concerning the possibility that from here forward, Ramji would seek a rematch against Aldebaran's party after his initial defeat, her current state was lacking. At the present, that was the problem that the captured Felt ought to face. No, I guess there's also one more. Muttering so, Felt turned her eyes toward the other problem, visible from her position. To her fore, across the crackling bonfire, a man sat facing Felt. No, he cannot be described as facing her. After all, his face was downcast, nary a glance in her direction. Clutching a sheathed sword to his chest, silently cowering as if he were deceased. The red-haired man radiated a sense of vexation in every direction. Heinkel. Left alone at the entrance of a cave naturally formed in a rocky wall, Felt and Heinkel were spending a dismal time together, waiting for the ones who had gone to ascertain the state of the surroundings and remove obstacles. For the time being, Heinkel was supposed to be in charge of supervising Felt, but based on the ratio of who. No, yeah, I expect some good things for Heinkel here. I'm expecting some good stuff for Heinkel in this arc. I think we'll see a real turnaround for him at some point. But based on the ratio of who was looking at who, it would not have been possible to tell exactly who the supervisor was. The manner of rejecting the outside world to the point of neither touching his dinner of dried meat nor putting water to his lips thoroughly rubbed Felt the wrong way. Felt had declared that she had no ruler of good or bad with which to measure Heinkel's actions. There was no falsehood in that. She would not alter her view. But she did have a ruler of liking and disliking to measure with. At the very least, his demeanor befitting a hollow despite yet living was something she absolutely hated. Yeah, but it is an interesting thing of like, she has a very specific outlook on life because of like her upbringing and all that, but she does still have a kind heart in there. And I mean, you see that with Arc 1 when she's like running away, like crying for help and everything, even though she's completely safe, right? She could have just ran off, but she knows to trust people. Well, not trust people, but trust people who are, kind to her as well. A little bit, depending. If they seem proper, right? Uh, Oi, if you're only gonna eat, pass me that dried meat. You can hear me, yeah? Don't ignore. Whoa there. Albeit her initial belligerence, the dried meat she had used to or to broach conversation was thrown at her as if to shut her up. She hastened to pick it up, but Heinkel cast nary a glance in her direction. In that instant, thinking it foolish to unclench her fists, Felt called out, Oi, once more. So, why the hell did you interfere back there? Straight to the point, Felt boldly cut straight to the source of Hankel's cowering. Hankel kept his silence, however. Given that he had flung the dried meat at her, he had not completely cut himself off from the outside world. Seizing on that, Felt lightly exhaled. Or exhaled, sorry. Your old man, how should I call him? The fight between Reinhardt's grandfather and the Divine Dragon. I'm not really a warrior or anything like that, so I don't know the specifics of who is superior in battle and stuff. But you're supposed to be the Divine Dragon's ally, yeah. For you to have interfered there meant that things were looking bad for the Divine Dragon. Uh, that's an outrageous prospect. There's also something strange about it. If your objective is the dragon's blood, then that grandpa being on the verge of victory ought to have been the perfect opportunity. Let me take a quick drink. Oof. How long have we been going now? Because, like, surely it's weird. It feels like we're approaching the end, probably, but, like, because it's not like there was many words, right? It said 5,500, so it's like we should be relatively close, but I guess we'll see, right? It's always the scroll bar on the side. The scroll bar on the side is what surprises me regarding that. Even though you might have gotten your hands on the dragon's blood, on the blood if the dragon died, you got in the way. Why is that? Using the other party's lack of objections to make her point, Felt bluntly lined up her words. As she had said, Heinkel's interference with the battle between the divine dragon and sword demon was exceedingly unnatural when considering his goal. It was also a possibility that he had acted on impulses of a strong grudge towards his father. But before flying off with the divine dragon, Heinkel had requested the dragon to apply healing on Wilhelm, whom he had stabbed. In other words, Heinkel had wished for neither divine dragon nor sword demon to die during that battle. It's way too incoherent. Just what exactly are you thinking? It had been that moment she was about to continue her words. Immediately pinned down to the hard ground, an unsheathed blade was fastened to Felt's neck. You talk too much, brat. Right before her eyes, the bloodshot blue eyes of Heinkel were present. Perhaps because he had bitten the inside of his mouth, his breath dosed her in a reek of blood, causing Felt to grimace. While she did so, Heinkel continued to slide the blade as if to intimidate Felt. Don't want to feel the pain. Then don't say such unnecessary "Goa!" Through an opening in that threat, Felt drove her fist forward without hesitation, straight into Heinkel's nose. Heinkel exclaimed, "Oh, ah," rather than pain. It was the reality of having been hit that surprised him. As he stood up with the momentum, a kick to the chest sent him crashing onto his backside. Felt looked down upon him. There's no way I'd be scared of you at this point. Saying that, Felt picked up Heinkel's sword, which had fallen beside her. For a moment, Heinkel's body tensed, but Felt heaved a sigh and tossed the sword back to him. Heinkel snatched up the sword, eyes widening, but Felt just shrugged her shoulders in response. It might have seemed a mystery why she had returned the sword, but from Felt's perspective, it was a natural decision. Yep. Uh, Even if Felt went ballistic here, she could not beat Heinkel. And on the off chance that Heinkel thoughtlessly tried to cut Felt down, It was clear that Ye would be overjoyed. To begin with, the moment Felt and Heinkel had been left alone, Ye's aims were made obvious. Possible, Ye wished to discard both Felt and Heinkel. Resorting to violence here was unideal. Oh yeah, because yeah. Whew, yeah, she would want to get rid of both of them, huh? So if they got into a fight and Felt got killed, that just gives her more opportunity to just get rid of Heinkel. Ooh. Uh was unideal as it would only be or it would only have been playing right into her hands. Even without such reasoning, there was also the fact that it was not Felt's role to beat up Heinkel. Then you'd think it'd be Reinhardt's role, but I think that also doesn't seem right. As Reinhardt's name came up, Heinkel was once again greatly perturbed. For a man over double Feld's age to be cowering in fear over her every word. Double is odd because Felt is like a teen. Double implies. I'm not saying that Heinkel's super old, but like. Because double implies that he would then be 30. And if he's 30, we also have to balance Reinhardt there a bit in terms of like that sort of age. So it's like I know it's like obviously a maybe not hyperbole because hyperbole maybe hyperbole but like obviously it's just using a phrase there and everything but it's like oh overdub sorry that's on me being dumb fair enough I failed to realize it did say over double fair enough I was just almost gonna say like at that point you would just say triple but like no that's on me I failed to read the over part uh great now I don't even remember where I was. I did this to myself. I had to go and make a dumbass point. Yeah, for a man over double Felt's age to be cowering in fear over every word and action was absurdly unsightly. However, Felt wanted to uncover the reason behind that unsightliness. Even that would deliver a terribly bitter flavor to Felt. She wished to know. Same as before, you don't gotta answer anything. I speak on my own and infer on my own. Wiping the hem of her clothes, dirtied from being pinned down, Felt waited not for the other party's response, and looked to the sky. Within the night sky, visible through a fissure in the rocky wall, countless stars shone aglow with a brightness that did not belong. Glaring at the ironic beauty in that sky, Felt broached with, as a matter of fact, bothered me about the battle between the divine dragon and that grandpa was everything I said before. Even though you want the dragon's blood, the actions you took don't seem to add up. And so, there's one other thing with you that doesn't seem to add up either. It's gluttony. To ignore the fact that that bastard's got the absolute worst personality, and that he never ever, that he never ever stops talking. Even without that, he's a good-for-nothing Sin Archbishop. There's no way he'd ever be welcome. But when it comes to reasons to hate that bastard, you ought to have way more than I do. Yeah. Hushed, Heinkel gave no answer, but his breath caught upon hearing the question. Even if he did not respond with words, Heinkel's reaction was far too easy to read. Thus, Felt narrowed her eyes. Released from the prison tower, Roy Alfred was being made to accompany them by Aldebaran as a necessity for his plan. There were endless reasons to hate, to detest the Sin Archbishops, who brought forth many a tragedy, but Heinkel ought to have had a more precise, definitive reason for enmity. After all, the woman who was Reinhardt's mother, who was Heinkel's wife, the affliction of the ever slumbering Luana Estrella, bore a striking resemblance to that which of the victims of gluttony. Said it once before, but I know about Reinhardt's family circumstances. And your wife's been sleeping for over 10 years, and you can't find a way to wake her up. Well, it might be resolved once you receive the dragon's blood, but how are you going to settle the score? How are you going to settle the score with the fuckface who put your wife to sleep for over 10 years? With the assault on Duchess Karsten and the battle at the Watergate City Pristella, The damage incurred by the authority of gluttony had been made clear. Sleeping beauties, tragic beings whose ties had all been severed, discovered in a state of unawakening sleep, with nobody around aware of their existence. It was uncovered that such individuals were none other than victims of the witch cult. You know what I just realized? Let me take a quick drink before I go on my thought here. I'm realizing something about what they're pointing out. Let me also fix this. I'm now realizing something about what was just pointed out. This arc. So, I'm gonna preface it with this. I don't think we are getting anything with Crush here, right? By all means, I think we are getting nothing with Crush here outside of Wilhelm, right? I want to make that clear. However, in regards to all this, this is making me realize that this arc is heavily about the gluttony stuff, right? This feels like a continuation. It's it's actually interesting thinking about it. Arc 6 was the continuation of that, right? It was Hall of Memories, and Hall of Memories by proxy relates to gluttony. We even saw all three of them there, right? Technically, we also saw them in Arc 5. Obviously, you could point fingers there. By all means, we add that on, right? Cool. Arc 7 and 8 all relates to Spica, right? Spica becomes a new person, yada, 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 but that still relates to gluttony stuff. All right, cool. Boom. Now we have this, and this also feels like a continuation of gluttony stuff, right? Because this stuff in regards to like, oh yeah, Heinkel and Luana, right, and what's going on there, and then Al getting help from Roy, and then Rem remembering who she is, and everybody else remembering who she is, and all this sort of stuff. It's this interesting thing where it's like this feels like our continuation of that. And if we're being real here, it's probably going to be the conclusion. I think it's going to be the conclusion of a lot of that. Now, that said, again, I don't think this is the entire end of that whole situation, right? I think a big thing to note is that, because I brought up Krush, right? And it's like, obviously, Krush would be related to this. I think nothing is going to be done with Krush for a while. I still hold the firm belief that Krush is probably the number one person to fight Capella, right? I also hold the firm belief that Melee is going to be very relevant there, by all means, right? Of course she would be. They fucking like allude to the two of them here, right? Um, but by all means, Melee will be very important there. But I still hold the firm belief after like 2 or 3 years about theorizing this that Krush will be the person to fight Capella, right? And that's the moment where it's like I think she's going to be like focused on that because we think about Fourier, right? We think about no, yeah, like it's like we think about their relation to the like you know sort of like the lion family sort of thing, that and I know you could be like, oh well, like Felt, for example, right? Like somebody could bring up Felt, and it's like fair for bringing up Felt. I think she could be relevant, but like I don't know that Felt would necessarily be like the big one, right? But I think Krush and Fierce, by all means, right? Especially with because you also have to think about why they went into this whole selection, right? Or why Krush did, and it's like obviously she was chosen by the stone, but it's something that they point out with EX1 of after 4 years gone, with the most like heartbreaking scene of him mentioning to Krush that he imagined marrying her and all this, and the two of them living happily, and then after he passes, her mentioning that that would have been a wonderful dream to go through and everything. Like, damn, she actually wanted to do that, right? Um, like, oh, that shit stings, right? Um, but like the idea that Capella could be responsible, like, here's what I'm gonna say: if Capella is responsible for that bullshit, it's 100%, right? There is no shot that it is not Krush. Like, similar to what I was saying about Rem and Al, and how I was like, dude, Rem is gonna kill Al. That would be a moment where I would say, dude, Krush is going to just pop off, right? Krush is going to do the fucking uh like 1,000 rending whatever the fuck like sword slash constantly to Capella. She's going to spam that shit like over and over again. It's gonna be the fucking Roy Mustang like that, but she's gonna be doing it with her sword just over and over again. Oh yeah, no, by all means, she gave Krush the fuck you sit in bed for the rest of time like bullshit, right? So by all means, Krush is like also already has a reason. I'm just saying if Capella's responsible for what happened to Fourier, it's over. It's over for her. She is going to be murdered, right? Like this is going to Krush is gonna potentially just find a way to fucking just make her suffer forever. I don't know that she would because Krush is very I will say Krush is very resolute and she is kind of like, decisive on just finishing it and that's it. I think something like that could be an interesting, I'm gonna say toxic sort of trait where it's like it leads to a downfall potentially, but like no, yeah. Yeah, oh, dude, this could be good. This could be really good. Yeah, the future line and all that. This could be really interesting. Oof. Ah. Hmm. I'm excited to see what like happens with Cruise there and everything. And like, yeah, I think this will be great for her, but I do think it's like she's not going to be relevant here outside of Wilhelm being here, right? I think they'll chill out with her here. She'll probably show up in Arc 10 because Capella will probably be in Arc 10, and we'll see all that go down, and that'll be awesome. Can't wait for that. But like, oh, I'm excited to see her pop off again, right? The fact that she'll have a proper arc. No, yeah, like there is a good chance. Cause here's what I'm thinking, right? Yeah, true, true. Here's what I'm thinking. There's a chance that if they corner Roy, right? You know what I'm realizing? If they learn what happens, right? Because Amelia will know what happens, right? If Ram or any of them learns what happens, they can just force him to do it, right? Just like Ram gets in front of him, punch, spit him out, punch, spit him out, punch, spit him out, and just eventually Roy's gonna cave. Eventually, he's gonna be like, all right. But I think I feel like that's potentially what could happen because now that they know that there's a way to get them out, they might just be like, cool, let's do a little bit of interrogating, quote unquote. And yeah, they might just get ruthless with him. So it'll be interesting, right? Hmm. This is gonna be real fun. I can't wait to see what happens, man. I do hope that Cruz comes back by the end and then we get Capella. That could be fun. I don't think get Kuseko. I I mentioned it a while in the past. I don't know if we are like I mean I've joked about it. I don't think we are actually probably going to get Gusteko as much as I like love the idea of it. Especially because yeah, people have pointed out like Capella's not from there. It would just more so be in relation to Elsa. But like you make a great point. Yeah, she could just torture Roy. Mm. Ooh. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um but yeah, I've joked about the whole Gusteko thing in the past. I don't think we are actually getting Gusteko at all, right? I think that is a pipe dream sort of thing of like, if we could, it'd be awesome. Depay has mentioned, I do remember him saying, he has mentioned that he would love to go over some stuff there, but no, yeah, uh, poor Joshua. But Depay has mentioned that he would be interested in going over some stuff there. I hope it's not side story focused. At the bare minimum, I kind of hope we get an EX novel, but it would be interesting if we could get a arc in relation to that if it was regarding them because I mentioned in the video it could be an interesting point to have Melee and Capella interacting with each other around there in the scenario that it also relates to Elsa, and therefore it's like, oh, the whole family's here, except one of them's dead, but they're in the homeland of that person, right? So, but at this point, I don't think it's happening. I just do like the idea a lot because it's the one area we don't know about, right? It's the one area, like I brought up EX1 earlier. EX1 goes over it like for 30 pages and then it's done. And then you learn nothing else about Guseko. And all it is like an arranged marriage sort of thing that like doesn't actually end up working out. And it's like that's it. That's all it is. Mm. Okay, I didn't realize Omega stuff was in good. I knew So what I knew about Omega was the stuff was in a different area than where we were familiar with. I had no idea it was in Gusteko, but that does make sense. That does make sense. That's interesting. Kind of interesting that she's over there, and what else happened in Arc 4, like alongside Echidna going into that body was the death of Elsa. But not to say like Elsa's like some fucking savior to these people, because she's just run of the mill insane person that you can find in Gusteko, but I do find that area interesting though. It's solely because I mentioned it in my video where I'm like, I would love to see more of like it's very much that interesting sort of place where it's very clear like the rich get to thrive and have whatever, and the poor get fucking nothing and have to kill and do all this sort of shit and everything, and it's like, ooh, right? It's a fun contrast between the two, and I like that a lot. It's partially why I would like to see more from it, but if the Omega side stories go into it, I'll definitely check it out. Whew. Okay. I think we get back to this. People from... Huh. That's interesting. I guess so far in terms of illustrations, we haven't had, or not illustrations, but like going off like EX1, for example, the people that were described there didn't have black hair. So it's like, that is interesting that they explicitly hate people with black hair. So Elsa, right from birth, like that was it, right? Damn. Kind of makes me wonder if that's why because like the implication is that she's an abandoned child. Kind of makes me wonder if that's why, right? I know the obvious thing is like, oh, well, parents could just have that, but like kids are weird, right? It's something I'll point out. Kids are weird because I discussed this with my close pal Brandon, when we were talking about designs for ADT, and it's something I discussed with him of like, I mentioned to him like if these two characters have these two hair colors, would it be possible for the kid to have this completely different one? And he's like, yeah, because or he was like, yes and no, because it depends on how that shit works. And he brought up like the hair color I was going for works, right? It works fine. But it's the thing of like kids don't necessarily have to outright take from a hair color because it's like I don't remember the exact fundamentals, but it's the weird thing of like how genetics are uh oh, interesting. Okay. That's some really interesting lore. Huh. Pushes spirits away. Um right, I was saying with the hair. It's a really interesting thing he pointed out of like hair usually does, take after from a parent or something like that. But it can just potentially be something else entirely, right? So it's like you could potentially have a kid that's blonde depending on the circumstance. And naturally, something like black or brown is very likely depending on, circumstances. So it's interesting. What else? No family. Huh. That's really strange. I mean, I get the whole thing is that what starts her career with that is her learning how warm blood is, but I'm curious on how, right? Because like, cause like, okay, no censoring here, because I'm not gonna censor shit. The whole reason that uh the whole reason that she becomes the bow hunter in the actual series is, I mean, she mentioned she fights, she steals in Guseko. That's natural for that place, but like she mentions the whole thing that the reason she becomes a bow hunter is because she's about to be raped, essentially, right? So it's like she she kills the dude before he can even do anything, and then that's when she learns. But that's it's interesting to see that it's like, oh, if she was born into a normal family, that's the case. Because I'm like, what would that even lead to, right? Like, unless it's just implying the same circumstance would happen, right? Unless it's implying the same circumstance would happen to her at some point, and that would occur. A little bit strange to me. I'm kind of curious. I almost want to say, right? I don't want to say this is like this would be the absolute, but I almost wonder if it's a thing of if she would potentially like hurt herself somewhere and then feel that blood and then that's also possible. Yeah, if she leads a normal life, suddenly cuts someone, right? Like maybe get into a fight, right? A scuffle, something, cut someone, then boom. I could see that. It is strange though because it's like it's weird to me because I'm not trying to discredit what like he mentions. Obviously, I don't want to do that because it's like then I feel like I'm impeding on someone else's story. But it's odd to me because it's like I always viewed it as Elsa is the way she is because she was born in a fucked up scenario, right? I always kind of viewed it as she was born in a fucked up scenario and Capella amplified that, right? By being like, "Hey, I have a job for you where you can just do that for free. Also, you're gonna despise me, but that's all right. The more important part, right? Um, so I always kind of believed it's like, oh yeah, if there was food on the table for her and somewhere to rest and everything, she'd be all right, right? I kind of always assumed that, like, in a certain sense, right? The the greed if, right? I'm not saying because obviously she is still like that there, but the greed if kind of has her more contained. She still has that sort of fetish in a way, but she's more contained. And I always viewed it as even if she had a similar, skill set in a normal sort of family, she might have not had that focus on things, right? Like unironically, it's weird to say, but it's almost some like oh with like maybe not roles reversed here, but like almost that sort of thing of like comparing her to like someone like Frederica, right? Because like older sibling, younger sibling sort of thing. It's like that sort of thing of like those potential roles would be reversed there. Of here's a very versatile sort of maid character or something like that who could just fucking kick ass, right? And it would just be like, oh yeah, they're skilled, but they don't have that sort of thing. But it is interesting to see that it's like, oh no, it actually wouldn't matter at all. She would still be the same regardless. Huh. What it does make me wonder is he mentions that like that whole thing, but it makes me curious on. I guess she probably would, but no, yeah, like yeah, like same character, no like no bowel hunt. Well, I guess I would be bowel hunting if it's post arc 4, but like hmm, I think ah I'm being a little like cheesy here, and it's like, oh, like like some Takano Jutsu sort of stuff, but like it would be interesting to see character growth for her being this like in a certain sense what Melee has is like oh refraining from that and what I mentioned of like versatile maid who just deals with shit like oh there's a threat at the mansion and she's just like right like just on the ready. That would be fun, honestly. Uh, I'm kind of curious if anybody's like written any sort of like fan fiction sort of thing like that, where just like a spin off. Yeah, yeah, true as well. I I, ima- I imagine like he would just be surprised, like, what the fuck is she doing here? And like she would probably see him and just be like, Uh, damn. Pay made an interesting character, and he just killed her off while she was simple. And by all means, it's fine to have fun, simple characters, but I'm just like thinking about these circumstances, or like these like fun what if circumstances. Like, man, this could have been a real fun character growth. Obviously, like I said, we have Melee for that. Melee kind of is the one to tone back the killing, but hmm. And you know what? To be fair, in regards to Melee, hold on, actually, one more drink. To be fair, in regards to Melee, I do remember Tepay mentioning Melee would essentially just grow up to be Elsa. Like not the whole like killing sort of thing, but like the whole, manner. I mean, we can see it in how she talks, mannerisms, braided hair, all this. She literally just tries to mirror Elsa. So technically, Melee is our version of her, but definitely, I will say, definitely a lot more human, right? She's a lot more human because Elsa at Melee's age was killing people. She didn't give a shit, right? Pain, something she welcomed. Killing like people was something she welcomed. All this, right? Blood, all that. But like to Melee, we've seen Melee has limits, right? We've seen that Melee, like as much as she's like, oh yeah, I could kill these people and it's whatever and all this. Eventually, the prospect in like post Arc 4 is brought up of, hey, if you go back to Capella, something worse than death is waiting for you. And like we see in Arc 6, she is terrified of that thought, right? She is freaking the fuck out. And she's like holding her head and she's like, no, 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 no. Right? Like she knows what's coming. And it's interesting because we know for a fact if Elsa was in that scenario, presumably even as a kid, she wouldn't give a shit, right? She'd just go rogue, right? She'd go rogue, she'd run off, it'd be whatever. To Melee, this is something she realizes of, I have nowhere to go. I'm fucked. Right? She notices she's like, I'm fucked. That's it. My life's over. Right? It's like that snap back to reality where she's not, like this sort of assassin anymore. She's just a regular kid. So we do know that she's like going to probably be like similar to Elsa in the future, but probably way more, like tame. A lot more simple. Like you know what? It'll be exactly what I mentioned. It'll be exactly what I mentioned. She'll have the mannerisms, she'll have the hair, potentially she'll look similar, right? Outside of that, she is going to be a completely different character, right? She'll tease, she'll do all that stuff, but outside of that, she is going to be a completely different character. Like, there is going to be no, oh, like blood and all this and everything. She is probably just going to be a regular adult woman, like, you know, fucking 8 years time or whatever it may be in the ReZero world, like all that sort of shit. So Elda's Elda. All right, Elsa's probably like a bit older than that. I mean, have we ever gotten like stated age for Elsa? I assume not, but like whatever that age would be, Melee would be a much more tame version where it's not like, you know, kill, but just instead regular adult woman, kind of teases, kind of has mannerisms similar to that, serial killer. That's it. Elsa is 23. I guess she does look young, so fair enough, but like, huh. She's 23. There's something interesting regarding that I can't mention, but there's something interesting regarding that I'm gonna have to message a friend about. But huh, 23. Wacky. So that means, so if we go off Melee then, because let's say, I want to say Melee's like, what, 11 or 12? Something like that? Like, very early, like, if not very early teen, like, very, I'm going to say older kid, right? Sort of thing. Uh, that would then imply, I'm going to take a guess and say she met Melee when she was like 3 or 4. right? Just going off illustrations. Um, Meili's currently 14. Okay, fair enough. So, uh, I'm assuming we're counting time skip with that. So that would then mean I'm assuming at least because I would say like Elsa's age presumably stops if we don't include the time skip. Um, but okay, so in that case, if Melee was 13 around the point of Arc 4 and all that, and then Elsa was 23, uh let's say Melee was about 3 or 4 when Elsa met her, right? I'm maybe not, she might have been 5, right? But like maybe 4 or 5. Maybe 4 or 5 sounds more accurate. Let's say she was 4 or 5. That would mean fuck, that would mean Elsa was like 14 when she met her. Dude. I'm just going off illustrations because like Melee looks really young when Elsa meets her, right? Dude. Let me actually I wanna look at some of the illustrations again. Uh dude. So that would be yeah, no, she's 100% super young. Going off the colored illustration, she is 100% super young, dude. Maybe not 4, but definitely like 5 or 6. Yeah, so Elsa was a teenager, dude. That's crazy. You could tell she was a teenager, actually, but yeah. Wow. Huh. Damn. She met Melee like super young. I mean, I knew she met Melee super young, but like in terms of her own age, she met Melee super young. Holy shit. Capella hired her that early, huh? I mean, I guess it makes sense because she was building a name for herself, but like, fuck, right? Capella just like finds random teens or kids and just goes, "Yep, I'm gonna force them into labor." Oh, just another fucking piece to add to her being a scumbag. I mean, we already knew she did that sort of thing, but just knowing that it was also with Elsa, damn, damn, ooh, damn. Hmm. All right, I think we get back to this. Where the fuck were we? Uh, here. Yeah, because we talked about Krush, Sleeping Beauties. Yep, blah 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 blah. They uncovered that such individuals were none of the victims of the witch cult. Yep. Okay. Of course, that ought to have reached the ears of Hankel. Nevertheless, not once had Hankel displayed any interest in gluttony, who could have been the cause of his wife's slumber. Was it because his utmost priority was to acquire the dragon's blood and awaken his wife? Was the impact of stabbing his own father, bathing in his blood, simply all too much? Or perhaps, if you uh, if you are seriously, or if you seriously are just completely excuse me, just uh, just completely disregarding the bastard, then why? Whoa, wait, what are? You don't need to respond. I told you, didn't I? I'll speak on my own and infer on my own. His grip on the sword quivering, with an expression deathly pale, Heinkel did look at Felt. Or did Heinkel, or yeah, Heinkel did look at Felt. The gaze of eyes Astrea blue clashed with that of her own red, and Felt was convinced. Deep within Heinkel's eyes was terribly indefinite, yet ultimately unperishing embers. Likely they were heat of the same ilk as that which dwelled in the eyes of Romji whenever he gazed upon Felt, appearing to be a despicable man, self-centered, selfish, self-destructive, of wavering heart whilst being ignorant of his own capabilities, and beyond all help was Heinkel Estrella. Concealed deep within, visible through only the slightest of gaps, was a heat ever present in this man's every action. That would mean the reason you don't even bother to look at gluttony is because you know there's no connection between your wife falling asleep and gluttony. You know it's incorrect, so you don't turn your sword on him. But Juana Estrella's affliction of Sleeping Beauty was definitively different to that of the other Sleeping Beauties. Unlike the Sleeping Beauties whose every tie in the world was severed, Juana was remembered by Reinhard, by Heinkel, by all who were acquainted with her. In her slumber, they all did lament. In other words, it was different. Juana Estrella was no victim of gluttony. Then, while Heinkel knew the truth of the matter, he had not shared it with anyone else. Why was that? Because he could not afford for any to know the cause of Luana's slumber. The cause was Reinhard. Oh, a pair of motionless, widened eyes. Oh wow, we were actually right at the end. Fuck. That's alright. It's fun discussing stuff. Pair of motionless, widened eyes, a voiceless countenance, a husky breath void of vitality, all of which became an answer for more eloquent than words, lending credence to Felt's conviction. That which she absolutely needed to do, finding that out, was Felt's current problem. By her resolve and conviction to face that problem, she arrived at the terribly bitter truth, and that was, the one who put Reinhard's mother to sleep was Reinhard himself. Huh. Ooh, that's... He... Yeah, he was 2 years old. Wow. Here's what... Hmm. Here's what I find interesting about this choice. Tappei did this as a cliffhanger. Oh wait, is the next just gonna bring me to... Okay, it will. Okay, I didn't need to open that extra tab. Fair enough. Um, Here's what's interesting about this. Also, I already like the art, funny enough. I saw it on my feed. So I just gave it a like because I assumed the volume was done at the time. And then the next chapter was released and I was like, oh, right. But I liked it regardless. Um, but right, I was saying, here's what's interesting. That's a very peculiar cliffhanger. Not to say like bad cliffhanger, because I think it works, but the previous cliffhanger was like, Petra interacting with Rem, which felt like a cliffhanger sort of thing. But then we get this chapter where it's like, oh, that's something people want the answer to. So it feels like a little bit rough in a way. So it's like, damn, right? A good cliffhanger by all means to get people interested in reading more. But it's like, huh. Interesting choice for one. I would have assumed the previous chapter would have been, a definitive cliffhanger just to see like, oh, I'm curious how they interact with Rem next. But that's interesting. That's really interesting. Huh. Huh. Neat choice. I can't judge it, but neat choice. And it's always good to have a strong cliffhanger. I mean, you want to do that, right? Um, speaking with my stuff, but like in general, when I've personally done final chapters for ADT, I typically always try to make it a cliffhanger, right? I typically try to be like, oh yeah, here's something that plays into what's gonna come next, right? Whatever it may be. Even like certain other sort of scenarios with it where it's like, oh, you might see something that seems a lot more simple in terms of a cliffhanger. I do try to have that be an interesting sort of thing where it's like, well, what could happen next? So, uh, no, yeah, it is the interesting thing of like Heinkel. It's kind of rough because it's like Heinkel is the better man because he did, love and cherish Reinhardt his old childhood. But then, later down that line, he got a little rough for things, right? He got really rough, and it got to a point where people got more upset with him than they did Wilhelm. And even with Wilhelm, for example, we understand later with Arc 5, he wanted to fix his attitude, right? He realized, man, I was a fucking idiot, right? He realized he was like, I was blaming my grandson for all this bullshit. It's not his fault. I was blaming him, right? It's not his fault. And obviously, what happens by the end is him going, "Nah, it was," right? But like, fucking, just that like middle point of Arc 5 where he's sitting there, like, I gotta have a proper conversation with him. I need to just make amends. We gotta me and him speak from grandfather to grandson. I gotta tell him I'm proud of the stuff he's accomplishing and all this. And, maybe ask him how he's doing. Maybe ask him, all this sort of stuff, what he enjoys now and all this, right? It's this interesting thing where they swap roles at that point, and then now it almost feels like they swap back. So it's neat. Then again, Heinkel also wasn't huge on Reinhardt by the end of Arc 5, so just saying. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's something we know is like or not early Heinkel, early Wilhelm is rough, right? I've seen people point it out, but how he focuses on, yeah, like I've seen people like point it out, but like how he treats Teresia, like he treats her like she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and obviously he loves her with all his heart. But the fact that he's like stop using the sword, right, is a little, hmm, right. I've seen people mention that, and it's like I do kind of get where that's coming from. I do kind of agree of like it is a very like old fashioned sort of thing for him. And then yeah, him with Heinkel focusing on training and all that, it does feel like this. You worded it perfectly. It's very like Endeavor like of just like, like my son is going to be really strong and he's going to do really well and all this sort of shit. And it's like, right. So, but I do like that he's a character who is at least partially willing to change by the point that we are at with Arc 5, and then obviously gets, pulled back. But during the start of Arc 5, he kind of realizes more about his life and kind of sits there and goes, uh, I need to pull back a bit. I need to fix these relationships. Ooh, excuse me. And better than a lot of old-fashioned characters. No, yeah, like he's a bit old-fashioned from like the start of when we see him with like EX2 and all that to there, but oh yeah, no, if Teresia was using like the sword, this would be like straight to hell, right? This would be a person who has just murdered so many people that it's like nah, right? Like there is no redemption. Well, I mean, it's tough to say because it also depends on the definition of like what we're gonna call like redemption because she's in like a war at that point, and as much as she's just killing, it's also the thing of like you have to think about like also the person at hand because it's like it's something she didn't want to do, right? Like she didn't want to kill people, she didn't want to have to do this sort of thing and everything. No, yeah, but like definitely she would have had a massive kill count. Unironically, I wonder what her limit would have been because we brought up Elsa earlier. There is a chance that she would have encountered like potentially like if she was still going. Well, I guess it would be passed on by that point. No, no, yeah, because Reinhardt's like roughly Elsa's age, so it would have been passed on by that point. I was just thinking about it like if she met like Elsa and she still had her shit, you know, I think it'd be over for Elsa. I think unlike Reinhardt, there'd be no like, I'd be like slight hesitation or like needing mana or anything like that. It would just be like, nah, time. The fucking Kagurabachi, like, just nah, time to die. I mean, in general, I mean, she might have just still been good enough as well, maybe not, because she did kind of need it. She did kind of need the divine protection a little bit, but yeah, yeah, that would be before because Reinhard was two. Yeah, that is interesting in regards to it of just like Teresia would have still been around for that. Hmm. I don't remember if that was I like because I remember like all the flashes they showed of the stuff with the anime like that like happened over time before Teresia passed. I don't remember if they showed Luana sleeping there or not as one of them. I know they showed them holding Reinhard. I do remember that one. I don't remember if they showed them or like showed her sleeping. I don't remember if that was one of them. That might have been. Hmm. I also, hmm. That's great. I, I do like that. I do like that a lot. Ah, I I almost want to be a corny motherfucker again and make a comparison, but at the current moment I can't. At the current moment I physically can't. Give it like I won't even say how long. I won't even give an estimate, but ah, I almost want to make a comparison because it's like there is something I know. Hmm. You know what? I respect that. I respect the fuck out of that for I I do like though that as a character she's willing to talk back to Wilhelm the way he acts, and then Teresa is like, This girl is great, right? She's so nice and all this and everything." Like that perfectly embodies the difference between Wilhelm and Teresa, and then also the difference between Teresa and Luana in terms of how they interact with Wilhelm. It's neat. I mean, I guess Teresa also teases Wilhelm a bit, but like she doesn't go, full on talking back, so works out. Um, let me take a drink. All right, so I know that this right here that we have is short. I did see this illustration. That is what I saw of Echidna sleeping because I didn't notice her in the Subaru and all that. And again, I thought it was an Arc 4 illustration. Guess not. So I do know this is short. So we can easily power through this. No problem. I am curious about what we're going to see though. So I guess we might as well just do it. All right. Uh, all right. Interesting first statement. Just like you, I'm a complete failure of a girl. As hearing the witch's words, spoken with downcast eyes framed by the long lashes, Aldebaran became unsure of what to say, merely sinking into silence. The grassland upon which Aldebaran's trysts with the witch occurred repeatedly without fail, a place which did not exist anywhere in this world, was an alternate dimension created by the witch. One which uh, word use is funny here. One which could be called a castle of fantasies. Castle of Fantasies is interesting. Uh, Even when he did inquire about its nature, she would invariably attempt to deceive him by saying something like a dream when you doze off. Upon that grassland, on this day, night had fallen unusually. I guess even unusual things can happen. As a star-studded black sky looked down upon him, Aldebaran sighed in wonder. On a fundamental level, the time of the grassland was fixed at midday. Given that this place was merely a landscape envisioned by its creator, the witch, it was divorced from notions of true time. Hence, the plains were always bright and decorated by clear skies, albeit the topical person required not any colors aside from black and white. Were they truly the possessor of such unexpectedly high spirits that a patch of bright blue sky would peek out of their heart of hearts without fail? Yet despite the matter of him harboring such doubts, he had been surprised by night falling upon the meadow nonetheless, to say nothing of the fact that the witch in question was dozing off atop the hill. Her upper body resting upon the white table, the witch took muted, sleeping breaths, as Aldebaran was to inquire on the topic of the unfamiliar nighttime scenery. Sorry, my phone lit up for a second. Uh, Nighttime scenery. Yeah, nighttime scenery. Upon realizing her slumber, he had bated his breath, fixedly gazing at the witch's sleeping face. His initial impression was that of thinking, the witch also sleeps, eh? Obvious though it may have been, that was the extent to which the witch's manner of life was an enigma. She was a being who would create something in an alternate dimension at will. So if it happened that she did not sleep, he would have not been surprised. In fact, until the present day, not once had he borne witness to her sleeping visage. She's infuriatingly beautiful. It was something he had known, but even when asleep, she possessed abnormally prominent beauty. The almond-shaped eyes housing unparalleled knowledge and curiosity were closed, but the facial features had likely taken God quite a bit of time to tune to perfection, and her long, beautiful white hair, seemingly faded white skin, seemed to declare that no other color needed be made known to the world. Truly infuriated him. Thinking about it, it's a rare opportunity. I should hurry and grab something to scribble on her face. Uh, as soon as he thought to do something rude, faint noise escaped her lips, causing Aldebaran to stiffen. Despite not having done anything, he felt like a child whose mischief was being reprimanded. However, in the next moment, the tension in Aldebaran's body would break in his personal record. I am noticing something now with what I'm saying, or what I said earlier, and the illustration coming up. After all, in the eyes of the dozing witch, he caught a faint glimpse of a teardrop. Teacher. Mm. There has to be something else because otherwise it's way too obvious, or like it was way too obvious to begin with. But that's some interesting imagery. That again, I think there is something else here by all means. There has to be, in my opinion. But no, yeah, I think that there is something else going on. I think this is bait. I feel like this has to be bait. Maybe I'm coping, but I think this has to be bait. Unconsciously, Aldebaran touched the shoulder of the sleeping witch and shook her body, with a faint groan at the call, and a touch to the shoulder. Closed eyes slowly opened, as if to ascertain those blackened eyes, or black eyes, blinked several times and reflected Aldebaran right before her. Aldebaran? Ah, yeah, that's right, teacher. It ain't like yourself to be taking a snooze out here. Yeah, that's that's fair. Uh, you know, quick drink. Definitely could be. On top of the fact that yeah, Sphinx leading up. Mm. Uh, where the fuck was I? No, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is like the whole like making that mold of somebody into what is essentially Subaru. I could see it, but by all means, I could see it. Yeah, yeah, true. Because otherwise, yeah, Satella would fuck with him a bit. So Uh, taking a snooze, which, right. Before Aldebaran, as he concealed his discomposure, the witch silently got up, placing her slender fingers to her jaw. The awakening witch contemplated the situation, and then, a dream, was it? The fact that it had been so, was unfortunate. Such was the nuance carried by the mutter. After muttering, the witch wiped away the tears in her eyes with her fingers, clearing away the aftertaste of slumber. Interesting that she is showing emotion, because that's something that Subaru points out to her. That is a scene that I do love, of Subaru pointing that out to her. Of like, oh yeah, like your emotions are so fake. And she's like, oh, thank you for pointing that out. I'll take that into consideration for next time. Right? And it's just like the fact that she frowns when she says that, and her voice just pitches down, and she's like, "I'll take that into consideration," and it's just like, oh, uh, yeah, that's a good point. It's like the difference in time between that of like TMNT would be like way further back, like 90s and all that sort of shit. Uh, I'm pretty sure TMNT went as far back as the 90s. Maybe it went back as the 80s, and I don't know. Might have also gone back to the 80s. I'm not entirely sure. Um, but I feel like that was a 90s or somewhere around there, right? Obvious thing. Uh, but then yeah, Subaru would think Naruto because that is the most recent sort of stuff, well, like not recent sort of stuff, but like out of popular ninja related stuff. It's like, oh, that, right? Uh, so it is fun to see like, oh, there's this stark contrast between them. Uh, right. Thus he unconsciously ended up asking about it. Or no, no, wait, I was still clearing away the aftertaste here. The nonchalant gesture, Aldebaran felt a strange sense of loneliness, and he unconsciously ended up asking about it. Cry while dreaming. You were a kid or something? What sort of dream was it? So he spoke. Aldebaran felt silent at the awkwardness, painfully regretting his question. In all honesty, he had envisioned being bombarded with a great amount of knowledge regarding dreams, or to be poked fun at, teased for expressing interest in the witch's dream. The usual progression. To Aldebaran's question, the witch did not respond with the usual progression. Instead, presented as an answer was the witch's comment from the beginning. Just like you, I'm a complete failure of a girl. Ruminating over the witch's words once more, Aldebaran reached the extremities of confusion amidst the silence. Just what on earth had she meant? Did she not care about being posed a direct question such as this? Even though she would not, even though she would usually blather on and on without and continuously, what was the reason behind her being so well mannered right now? Even supposing he did inquire it and ascertain it, would the witch remain unharmed? Good grief, just which one of us is the child? Huh? You said that I'd become so small that I was just like a kid. Worry not. I'm not some cute existence capable of being hurt by you. I'm a wicked witch, you know. Closing one eye in a wink, the witch voiced to her the same old line. Witnessing a glimpse of her characteristic childishness therein, Aldebaran heaved a great sigh. For some reason, felt like there was no true lifelike feeling in it. Shit, to be feeling this sort of way because of someone like teacher. How peculiar. As far as I know, teacher is supposed to be a title of honor, and yet I cannot sense a shred of reverence, even though you were just trying to hide your embarrassment at peeping at a maiden's sleeping face. You go about these things way too maliciously. That he was on the verge of being traumatized was Aldebaran's protest. Yet the witch displayed zero concern regarding his complaints, tapping her finger on the table in good humor. That instant, cups filled with tea manifested, one of them for Aldebaran. Come now, cheer up. Should I take the trouble of producing confections as well? It's fine. Even if I eat here, it won't fill my stomach. So when I return to the other side, I'll be all jumbled up, feeling like I'm full while my actual body's hungry. When you say that, I just want you to eat even more. You're the worst. Shouting at the witch, who did not conceal even a shred of her impishness. Aldebaran rested his chin in his palm. Then, stealing a glance at the gleeful witch, he ascertained that any traces of tears were nowhere to be found. The teardrops had vanished, and yet an unfading lump lingered in Aldebaran's chest. True, true. It is funny because it's like, in a sense, it is, it functions as that literal thing of, like you mentioned, like Al has one arm, Super has two, but then it does actually work for the narrative and what they grasp at and what they try to protect and all this sort of stuff. It is really interesting that, honestly, presumably, Tepe did make that narrative choice for a reason, but like maybe not, right? It could have been coincidental, but also at the same time, regardless of if it was or if it was intentional or whatever it may be, it is really well done in terms of how it fits the narrative. It's really damn good. Uh, the trio of sun vanished, and yet, the witch had said it was a joke. There's likely no such thing, but the truth. Even she, beautiful and wise as she was, would have times where she cursed herself and wanted to cry. Just who in the world could see the witch as a failed existence? Ooh, excuse me. Hmm. It's nothing, sleepyhead teacher. Directing insults at the witch, tilting her head devoid of malice, Aldebaran brought the cup to his mouth. Likely, he had missed his opportunity, a chance to question her on that very thing. Would it ever come around again? Supposing it did, would Aldebaran wish to know the answer? If he did wish to know, would the reason be because he sought sympathy or compassion? Or perhaps, even a fake starry sky is still quite the wonder to behold, yeah? With his wish perhaps to have those black eyes, which albeit bore a jet black hue self-same to that of the starry sky, appeared to dazzle even more than the latter, turned towards his own self. Aldebaran, who was the same as the witch in being a failed existence, knew not. It is interesting. It is really interesting with this shit. Hmm. Yeah, it does. I like that. That does emphasize what you mentioned more of. He does feel like this fake sort of Subaru, and it does work out in a very interesting manner. Huh. I do still think this is absolutely bait. Right, I saw some comments down there of being like the look is identical, but it's like, I don't know. Again, it's way too obvious. Tepe's made every plot twist so far, uh, very interesting and just sudden, and you never expect it. It would really suck if one of the most interesting things, that being Al, is just, outright like, here's Subaru, right? So I do think there's a lot more going on. Again, a failed like mold of him could work out really well as an interesting plot point. But anybody who might still say like Al equals Subaru sort of thing, I don't think there is anything to that. I think that is absolutely a dead theory at this point. There is no shot, right? If we were still in like arc free and still learning bits and pieces about him, maybe. But like at this point, we're way too deep, right? And you can do obvious plot points and have people, you know, figure stuff out. I brought up Deltarune earlier, right? There is a very obvious plot point with Deltarune that I won't go into because it's a recent game, so I don't want to discuss spoilers. Uh, there's a very recent plot point that people brought up that for that, um, the, but like there's a very obvious plot point for the end of not for the end, but for I saw that and laughed and then immediately like just fought the end. Um, but there's a very obvious plot point for Deltarune that people have pretty much figured out, and I don't think it's going to be changed at all, or it's going to be something we don't expect. But what I do gather is there was enough hints in there that, yeah, it might be an obvious plot point, but we don't know the whole details yet, right? Because for that game, essentially what it is we know what this plot point is, right? There is no shot we don't know. However, we don't know how we got to this plot point, right? Like, I'm not saying that Al is Subaru, right? But let's say it was, right? It would have to be a thing to compare it to the Deltarune thing I'm mentioning. It would have to be a thing of we would have to know, okay, there's enough hints to say Al is Subaru. However, we would have to know how he got to that. The mold thing actually, like the molding him to be this like, you know, Subaru, but he's kind of like a fake version of him. That actually kind of fits because then, like in comparison to it, because then it's a thing of like, okay, let's say it is. Let's say we get enough hints that it just outright says that's what it is, right? We then have to know how we got here, right? How did we get to this plot point they're trying to bring up? And that's more so what I mean with that, right? It's like you can do a plot point that's obvious if the big thing with that plot point is essentially establishing that you don't know how you got there, right? I think that's what could work. But the problem is, if Al equals Subaru, this just makes that obvious, right? There's no how necessarily. There technically could be, but there's no how because now we're just having the answer thrown at us, right? Whereas with the other, right, with the other theory in mind, there is a chance of like, okay, there's a lot more to build off of here because it's like now we have to figure out what did Echidna do, right? What exactly happened with Al, right? So then it leads to that interesting plot point. Whereas if it's just him, like, yeah, we'd have to figure out what happened, but other than that, no, yeah, like, like maybe something like that. Like she just fucking tortures them, right? Or something like that. I mean, we do know his like face is damaged and all that, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. That said, though, this volume was great, right? I did enjoy this shit a lot. I mentioned it on the previous one. I don't think I have to like say too much different because it's still the same thing. I still hold the same regard for it. I think this was still very fun. I had a great time with this, and I'm excited for more. I'm definitely while Tepe is on break for who knows how long. Uh oh, it did happen. Okay, fair enough. Um, we might have. I don't fully remember. Uh, to be fair, it's been 2 weeks. I don't fully remember if like that was something that was brought up on that previous stream. Um, but what was I saying? Right, yeah. So I mentioned it before. Enjoyed this volume a shit ton. Uh, Hopefully Tepe's on a big break because I want to finish up everything that I can for Act 2. So here's my issue right now for Act 2, right? It's something I'm gonna bring up in the update video as well. Um, all right. I still have to. I do have it on my notepad, but I still have to check out the other one that was brought up about Al and Ye. Um, but here's something I'm gonna bring up here that I'm also gonna bring up in my update video. So, Act 2, the only issue I'm having right now, just because like it's like I'm getting busy with stuff, but normally this wasn't an issue in the past as much with ADT. The only issue right now is the cover, right? I Here's the thing. If I felt like it, I could start uploading chapters right fucking now for Act 2. Right? At least in my opinion, I could do that. Right? Maybe not absolutely right now, but like we could probably start the teasers and everything, and I would be just fine. I know we could start uploading uh chapters and all that, everything. I probably would be alright. Here's my big issue though. I wanted to make the surprise reveal of who this new main character is via my cover. So that's the only thing holding me back. When I get that cover finished, we are pretty much good to go, right? Which is going to be great. So I hope that Tepe is on break for a while because if I can just work on this cover in peace and then just have all this done and all these chapters are checked and all that, oh yeah. Let me pull these up on my phone. I keep Discord on here closed when I'm streaming just because it can be annoying a bit. Let me see this. Okay, yeah, so I saw the Amelia one. Let me see the character design. Well, these are updated. Okay, there's Anna Rose. The dress on her looks odd. I mean, I know it's the typical, like, skin tight sort of thing, but it's also absurdly long. Maybe not absurdly long, because, like, that's, like, correct, technically, but it looks like there's something odd about Anna Rose's design. I don't know what it is. There's something about it that's, like, throwing me off in terms of how it's designed, and it seems a little off. Climb looks fine. Uh, Ye looks great, right, with this concept page. Roy, pretty standard, but I mean, nice update to his design. I do like that they gave her a heart and everything. Like she's giving a like she's blowing a kiss. That's great. And let me see the color pages. So yeah, there's the high quality Amelia one. That does look really good. Shockingly, I actually didn't bring it up earlier. Shockingly brighter than I imagined it would have been. Because like they kind of imply like this nighttime sort of scenery. It's a lot brighter in the sky than I thought it would have been. And I know there's snow, but like behind that snow, it looks kind of blue, and it's like, hmm. Oh, and then there's Wilhelm's. Let me zoom in a little bit. Wilhelm looks good. I do like this close-up shot of Volcanica. This close-up shot of Volcanica is really good. Wilhelm's further away, so obviously there's less detail to him. He almost looks young. I his eyes almost look young because he's usually drawn with kind of slimmer eyes because of how old he is. He almost looks young in this illustration. But Volcanica looks sick. That is like really good looking. I like this. I like this a lot. Hmm. No, yeah, this is these arcs are gonna be rough to animate, but I hope for the best for White Fox. They've been doing great with Arc 5. I can only hope that they like aren't absolutely losing their minds trying to draw this shit. But could be. You know what? That could be an artistic choice. I think the problem is, right? I'm not trying to bash the series art, but I think the problem is there have been inconsistencies sometimes. Right. There have been inconsistencies in terms of how things are drawn and back and forth and ever because like let me pull up one of my favorites, right? From Arc 7. And don't get me wrong, I go through this as well, right? I think this is any artist sort of thing. I think it's just hard to tell because usually when it's like a more I'm gonna say more professional sort of thing, it sometimes feels like more accurate to be precise with it. Um, but the issue I have sometimes regarding it, I believe it's volume. I believe it's the one with Todd on there. No, it's not that one. It is the one. It's 32? No, it's 29. No, is it not 30? No, it's not 30, huh? What the fuck illustration would it be? 31. Why is this an illustration in 31? Okay. There was probably a side story. Um, Let me pull it up here. So this one, I really like this one, right? I think this one looks great. Let me pull up the full image. I think this one looks great, right? This one's fucking awesome. Um, no, yeah, anime owners are gonna find Sphinx very interesting in terms of just like, who the fuck is this? Which is why I always say I think we need the EX novels first before we continue too far past Arc 6, right? Um, but I really like this one. I think the details on both of them look great. Uh, Funny enough, I used Amelia for the thumbnail for the recent video, and the whole joke, if you zoom into the text, I mentioned uh that on the other, like, oh yeah, it's like the spoiler is the other side of the image, which is obviously Rem here. But I think both of them look great. I mentioned it in a tweet once. They have this weird, like, almost oil painting sort of feel. Not really oil painting, but almost that sort of feel to it. And yet they're drawn the same exact way as before, and they look really good. Shading on Rem is fantastic here. Amelia's also got some great shading, and I love the background on her. And I love the more detailed background with Rem, right? This kind of difference between them. This one's great, but I'm sure if I were to pull up others, I would occasionally, like, if we went back, uh, let me like try and find one that I'm not huge on. I don't want to go with early series because I feel like going early is not fair. Um, Surely there's like some that I saw that I was just like, nah. I do really like these. I do remember I really like these ones. Um, but I do occasionally remember some like a few here and there that might have been like, hmm. Trying to remember which ones they were. I don't know if I can pinpoint exact ones. I might even have to look at the ones that aren't colored illustrations because it might not be colored illustrations. But I do know occasionally there have been times where an illustration's been made and I'm like, I can't tell if that's intentional or if that was just a weird choice because it just looks a bit odd, right? And again, that happens sometimes, but it can be iffy, right? I think here's the thing. So here's what I would say about Otsuka's stuff early on, right? Oh, okay. Um, here's what I would mention. Uh, yeah, I didn't even realize the comments. Sorry. Definitely, yeah. Arc 7 and 8's backgrounds, in terms of just like how they're drawn, absolutely get me hyped for the anime because they look great, right? Um, but here's what I was gonna mention for the early series. I'm like 50-50 on it because stuff like this looks fantastic, right? Like this one, this one. But that said, there's a weird thing, and I noticed this as somebody like, oh, who enjoys Rem a lot. There's a weird thing that happens with Rem where she gets drawn in occasionally very strange ways. So, like, the consistent design we know her for is this, right? This, like, yeah, you know what? I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. Um, he definitely tried more. I do think there's occasional ones like this where it's like, ah, I think this one is cool, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm not huge about Rem's face here. It looks a little odd to me, and this, like her general sort of like picture here, like the posture and all this and everything, and how she's positioned on there, the angle, all that. I don't know how I feel about this one, but I do think it is consistently like nice looking, right? And again, there are some really good ones early on. But definitely later, a lot of stuff does feel a lot more traced. Because you know what? Yeah, I like not like not traced in a fully bad necessarily way, but it's just like you could definitely tell there's a lot less, you know, interesting stuff to it. Because I think like this, you get this very interesting angle to both of them here, right? And then Subaru and Julius here have this nice, very unique sort of structure to their face. All this, their outfit is kind of drawn nicely. You don't really see this too much with them. Uh, and then, following this one, you get this one. And it's a much softer look for Subaru, not commonly seen, right? But again, facial structure, very nice, very sharp. Uh, she's got a softer looking face because he's looking at Amelia, right? Amelia's face, kind of standard for what we know, but it's different than what we've seen, right? So it's this interesting thing. Like, I will bring up the one I like from before. This one, right? I'm gonna keep it real. I like how both of these look here a lot, right? I need to point out I like this one a lot. I do think I'm gonna keep it real. I think I've seen this face and everything from Amelia before. I feel like I have seen this before. Like this exact look, right? Maybe not full on outfit, but I feel like I've seen this exact look before. And that's kind of the issue, right? Well, that's where the issue rises. Um, no, yeah. Oh boy, his fucking classmates. Um, but I think that's definitely the issue with the later volumes and stuff like that. Uh, and it's like it's weird, right? Because it almost frightens me myself because I actually am pretty big on a lot of like, hold on, let me see if I can find this. I'm actually big on a lot of older styles for like mangas and all this sort of stuff. One of my key examples I always bring up to people is, let me try to find a good one. I was going to mention One Piece. I just want to find a good one of the manga. Um, can can I get a good one of One Piece? I want to find a real nice one. I guess the one I'm looking at technically works. It's just the problem is it's a color spread. So like it's tech like I know the original image is a color spread, so I think it's a bit fucked up to bring up. Because like one's intentionally supposed to be more detailed. Uh, can I just find one that's just comparing the two? See, now I found the reverse. I found the reverse where one of them is a manga panel and the other one is a colored illustration of the opposite. Um, huh. This is way more difficult than I thought it would be to find. Tell you what, I'm going to pull up both of these because they technically work, right? Uh, so what I was going to mention in regards to this, right? Similar to the Otsuka stuff. So here's an old versus new of One Piece. Now I'm also going to pull up this one because I think it is unfair to judge this one. This one on the left is a color spread. This one on the right is a color spread. So I think it's more accurate to go off this. 100% there is more detail. I think this is also actually a fucked up one to choose because this is a lot more simple as a panel on the left. This one on the right is intentionally more detailed. Um, but just general style wise, there's a lot more like I'm gonna say like scratchy sort of line work with the newer one. I don't mind it, but I always liked this soft style the series had. Like let me find a good one. One Piece manga, let's go Water 7. Something like that. Or I guess Any's Lobby is what I want. Um, like this panel, right? This is a full spread. But this, right? This I fucking love in terms of how it looks. It's very simple. There's not as much like lines in there, with like the hat or like underneath the neck or like under the arms or whatever it may be. But it looks so fucking nice in terms of how it's stylized and everything. And I really fucking like it. I think this shit is awesome, right? Similar. This is how I end up feeling about a lot of this. Is like I think some of the older stuff does look nice, and I think some of the newer stuff, by all means, is great. Like Priscilla here looks fantastic, and if we go off other illustrations, obvious one, these are awesome, right? Don't get me wrong, these are fucking fantastic, right? I like these ones a lot. But I definitely do think there were some really strong ones very early on. And after the fact, it's like it does feel a little, like you mentioned, like occasionally a little copy pasty, like the Amelia I pointed out on volume 31, right? The Amelia here, where it's like, I feel like I've seen this Amelia before. Can't tell you where, but I definitely feel like I've seen it before. So, you know, again, I don't mind it. I still think the series obviously still has really good illustrations, but it's like I can definitely see problems that people have now and like critiques and all that. I could definitely, you know. But these do look, I mean this one Otsuka locked the fuck in. You know, I mean that feels obvious like of course, but it's like that one absolutely. This one I will say this volume had some really good ones. That's what I want to point out. This volume had some really good ones. I think let me go through them. This one's beautiful. I like this one a lot. I okay, I do want to point out, um, could I see how she looked before? I think it was 36. No, it was this one. No, it was this one. No, it was 36. I was correct. I knew which one it was, and yet I had to second guess it. It is the same length of her hair. I'm not gonna lie. This shot, sorry, hold on. This shot of her with the hair like that. I'm not gonna lie. This haircut looks fucked up for her. Right. I get that it's just the haircut she's had the whole time, but this shot of her does make her haircut look a little bit fucked up. And I think it's just because of how short it is. It's really cut short towards, the face. There's not much in terms of bangs, and then it also divots, right? Like right in the middle. So it's like it almost has like a bowl cut sort of look, even though it's not, right? But I do really like this one. Uh, oh, I never realized huh, huh. Just from drawing these sort of ears myself, I never realized Otsuka kind of does the method I'm familiar with, where you kind of divot down a bit, but then this one doesn't divot. I guess it's because there's nothing to divot to, but I feel like you would just divot to the back of the hair. Huh. Still works. I'm just surprised by it. Um, but this one looks great. I do think, you know, her hair is a little bit odd, but I do love this one. I think this one's beautiful, right? Uh, this one is awesome, right? By all means, this one is really fucking cool, right? Like absolute. You cannot tell me this one is not the fucking coolest. Like this one's good, right? I'll say the star is very simple. The star is very simple in how it's drawn, but that's all right because you get the coolest background to Cecilis while he's on the ground. So that makes up for it, right? I maybe the star could have been a bit more detailed instead of just big, like orb, but still very nice looking. Uh, this one's neat, right? Fairly simple. Fairly simple looks for both of them and all that. Um, this one's nice. I like this one. This one's good. This one's nice. Again, simple, but I like it. This one is fantastic. I remember seeing this one and I was genuinely floored. This looks so good. All the eyes in the background, like Echidna's eyes, and then, well, not Echidna's, like Sphinx's, obviously. Ooh, excuse me. But, like, followed by her disgusted look, and then just all of this, like, back and forth of varying sizes and everything. That one's really good. Uh, Obviously, this one's great, right? Uh, and then you have the best of all, which is the last one there. Well, I mean, I guess it's also this one, but this one's just a compilation. This one is a compilation, so it doesn't really count. This would be the absolute best of all. That shit's fantastic. That volume had a lot of good ones. I'm kind of curious. I'm trying to remember what these ones were like. This one's neat. That one's neat. I do like that it mirrors the like Amelia, Beatrice, and Subaru one. This one I like. That one's simple. This volume had some really simple illustrations, huh? There's that one. There's them cooking, and then yeah, there's the orb, and then yeah, I think like this is where you really see like a big. Like it makes sense because it's like these are the more like simple scenes, so they're obviously gonna have simple illustrations. But just oh, you could see the difference there, and then boom, I kneel. And then the previous volumes, just going over it. Yep, all of them. Again, I was surprised at how some of these people looked. Like the pig dude, I was surprised that he looked this sophisticated when I thought he was going to be a lot more like brutish looking. Uh, Fun colored illustration there. These I remember being really good. I mean, there's that one, which is just a silly one, but there's that. Oh, I never saw this one. Hold the fuck up. Oh yeah, because you know what it was? I made the review. I made the review when the colored illustration of this was out. I didn't ever see this one. So this was out. This was out. This, was obviously out. It's what I used for the thumbnail. I remember this, and nothing past this. So I've actually never seen these before. This looks really fucking good. Oh, that actually really, that's a really nice DA one. Didn't see this one. He's just sitting there. Okay, I do want to potentially critique something here. Old Man Rom looks short. For a guy who is this hulking sort of figure, he's a lot more slim than you kind of remember him being, and he's a lot shorter. So, like, it might be just general perspective, but it just feels weird in terms of how he's perceived there. Um, that's a cool one. I like the eyes. I like the eyes on Volcanica. That's a really good one. Uh, Roy's neat there. I do like that. That's nice. I like that. And then yeah, okay, that's just standard past that point. That's good. That's good. I like that one. Yeah, I mean, I think quality does like kind of vary more now. Um, but at the same time, I do also think there were illustrations before. Here's what I'm gonna say, right? This is my personal opinion. This is not me bashing Otsuka's art. This is just me giving my personal thoughts. I think now, or I think before, there was some really heavy hitting illustrations, right? That were always like consistent in quality. But when they didn't hit, they did not hit, right? For me personally, I brought up that Rem one when she takes out her horn. When they did not hit, they did not hit, right? However, now I think some of the illustrations, like some of them beat out the older ones, but a lot of the older ones do tend to kind of beat out these ones. However, I will point out that in regards to that, I think when there is a illustration here that is a little bit lesser, it still looks good, right? Even if, yeah, we can make the obvious argument of like what I brought up with the Amelia one, of it does feel like there's a little bit of copy paste sometimes, like not exact, but like definitely, some very similar looks there. Um, I do think that when they don't necessarily hit here, they are still good, right? They are still decent in quality. They're just not always perfect, right? And I think that's the big thing, right? Because I mean, even if I were to mention like issues like fucking, where is it? Like this one, and we go down here. No, it's this one. With this one, we go down here. we go down here, even if we bring up this one, and we point out the obvious, very obvious inconsistency on the left, right? It's like, this illustration still looks pretty damn good, right? And then, Madeline does get illustrations later down the line, and I'm like, just going off the cover, this looks good, right? So it's like, even with that out of the way, it's like, there's still some good quality in there, but I do think the older ones do hit very hard, and there is a lot of consistency with the older ones, right? The best way to put it, older ones have more consistency, but when there is a slight misstep, it does feel a little rough. Newer ones don't have as much consistency. However, missteps don't feel as rough because it's a lot more solidified. That's the best way to put it. Like, I think we've reached a point where usually it looks a-okay and we're fine, right? So, hi Kenza. But yeah, with that said, that is pretty much it for now. So, I mean, same thing as I said last stream. We'll be back when there's more. Last stream I said, yeah, we'll be back for Deltarune on Wednesday or tomorrow or whatever the fuck it was. Now there's none of that. Now we're done that. So it's like, if I were to mention Deltarune, I'd say next year. We'll be back next year for Deltarune, but for this, we'll be back when Tepe returns with it. I have an update coming out soon, like I mentioned. We'll get that out, and I'll mention the details regarding what the fuck is going on and all that. We'll get there. That's all right. But for the time being, we're gonna end off. So take care. Have yourselves a great night, and I will see you all with whatever comes next. Yep. Have a nice day. Or night, whatever it may be. It probably is night. I mean, yeah, fuck, even for me now, it's basically bordering on that. It's almost 9 p.m. Holy shit, that's longer than I expected. All right, regardless, though, everybody have a nice night. We will be back soon, and obviously there'll be an update. I'll have the review out probably soon, right? Again, I hope we don't mind. I want to focus on Act 2 a little bit, right? Let me finish up what I need to with Act 2, and I will get that review out. That is all I'm going to say, right? If I can just get that finished, I can immediately jump back, get the review out. We can get big videos out on the channel. I have a lot I want to do for big videos. I think I might have to delay the Like a Dragon one a bit. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. For now, I'll focus on maybe some of the other ones. We'll see. But I'm going to finish up the Act 2 stuff. We'll be here with the review. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. So take care. Have yourselves a nice night. And farewell. And stay safe.